I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order, please. The first item on business is to go into closed meeting. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. And be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into a closed meeting for the purpose of the discussing of the following. Section 2.2-3711, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. And that will be the Agency on Aging, the Local Workforce Investment Board, Social Service Board, and Personnel. The next item is -3, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or for the disposition of publicly held property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of a negotiating strategy of a public body. And that is for the Park and Ride Lot, the Allegheny Springs Consolidated Site, and property behind the Government Center. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Palettis?
Aye.
7 ayes.
The next item, welcome everybody. The next item on the agenda is to go out of closed meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Palettis?
Aye.
7 ayes.
And the next item is clarification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provision of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Then moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Palettis?
Aye.
7 ayes.
And the next item on the agenda is our invocation, and following that will be our pledge of allegiance. So if we will please rise and take a moment of silence and consider what's before us tonight.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. The next item on the agenda is a presentation from the National Association of Counties 2013 Award for the Montgomery County Floyd Regional Library. One on a NACO Achievement Award for their program entitled Celebrating Science and Art in Montgomery County Floyd Regional Library Program.
Yes, sir. And
Thank you. Sorry for stuttering through that.
That's all right. We have an achievement award that was presented a couple of months ago, I believe, from NACO. We've been very fortunate over the years to receive a couple of these, and the library has been a previous recipient. But, Mr. Chair, we wanted to give this to the board and allow the board to have the opportunity to present it to Ms. Austin, our library director. So,
All right. You all want to go down there, or is she here?
yeah,
I didn't see her.
couldn't see it well.
Okay.
The monitor's got her blocked.
All right. Do we all want to go down?
Is it really?
Congratulations. Ms. Austin would like to say a few words, if she may.
I'd just like to thank you for your support for programs such as this. The library staff puts a lot of effort into all of our programming, and it's always nice for my staff members to be recognized. I'd like to update you on a couple of other projects, if I could, real quickly. I'd like to thank you for the funds that you gave us to complete 3 projects that have been kind of hanging over our head. One would be the roofing at the Christiansburg Library.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. They finished that a couple of weeks ago, and then we had a hard rain, and there were absolutely no leaks. So we're not quite ready to do our happy dance yet, but we're taking that as a good sign. And I know Steve Phillips is thrilled. We also have ordered the circ desk for the Blacksburg Library, and that will be in a couple of months. I hope that we'll have it installed by Thanksgiving. And this will allow for, I think, better customer service and allow the staff members to better watch who's coming in and out of the building. And then the last project is the new van, the new courier van. As you know, we ran our old one into the ground. It's still limping along, but the new one should be in a couple of days. We're going to have it lettered with some nice lettering, so it'll be like a walk or a driving billboard for the library system. So we couldn't have done this without you, so thank you very much for your support. I appreciate all you do for the library, so thanks.
Thank you very much.
And also a copy of our annual report.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
The next item on the agenda is our fiscal year 2013 annual report, which will be presented by Ms. Ritchie.
Now that Paula's handed out her annual report, I'm happy to present the county's annual report, and I want to thank the board and the rest of the county staff for their support in this project. And without further ado, we'd like to show you our video.
Montgomery County, Virginia.
Friendly and caring.
Distinguished by vibrity and diversity.
And free food and traditional life.
Our goal is fostering a high quality of life for all our citizens.
Montgomery County.
Beautiful farmers, mountains, green spaces. It truly does offer something special for everyone.
Helping our businesses grow diversifies our economy, helping us thrive in good times and challenging times.
We invite you to watch as we highlight the ways in which
proud to provide outstanding citizen services.
Montgomery County, Virginia.
Economic development. A business-friendly environment helped attract 8 new or expanding companies with more than $256 million in new capital investment in fiscal year 2013. The community also created 1,282 new jobs, a 3% increase in county employment. A Utah-based firm opened its first East Coast distribution center here, providing more job opportunities. This online retailer of premium outdoor gear, Backcountry.com, opened with much fanfare in Palm Branch Poker Park along Interstate 81. The Poker Park is also welcoming another company. AeroPro, manufacturer of aerodynamic instruments, plans to open its new facility this fall. More economic development along Interstate 81 is clearly on the horizon. The General Assembly, with legislation sponsored by State Senator John Edwards and Delegate Joseph Gibbs, approves the sale of extras on hotels and restaurants on exits 109 and 128 in hopes of bringing more investment, jobs, and tax dollars to the county. The county is also marketing buildings and properties that are no longer needed. The former Elliston Lafayette Elementary School and several other properties sold on the auction block. The town of Blacksburg and the developer are working on rezoning the old Blacksburg Middle School property, which could bring residential housing, offices, and retail stores to South Main Street. And the county is reviewing a buyer's proposal to buy the former Christiansburg Elementary School. Tourism. Tourism is a more than $120 million industry in the county and towns of Blacksburg and Christiansburg. Tourism not only provides more than 1,200 jobs, but enhances the quality of life by sharing our culture, heritage, and natural beauty. Tourists and residents alike can see love moving here, thanks to a state grant awarded to the Regional Tourism Program. A sculpture in the town of Christiansburg depicts some of our favorite activities. And a colorful mural welcomes visitors, students, and others in downtown Blacksburg. Arts and recreation. Recreational opportunities promote wellness and a healthy lifestyle for families and people of all ages. The 9 and 10-year-old Dixie Angels brought home a state title and competed in the Softball World Series. For the young and young at heart, the Golden Hills Disc Golf Course expands to 37 holes covering 4 miles, one of the largest in the country thanks to volunteers and the business community. The Huckleberry Trail is expanding across Route 114 near New River Valley Mall, all the way to Christiansburg Recreation Center and High School. The Rock the Pond summer concerts return this year, providing music and entertainment at the Rock Pond. Citizen services. Montgomery County is a good steward of natural resources and provides quality services. Volunteers at the 30th annual Ruin and Blue and remove trash from along more than 40 miles of roads. Thanks for pushing in to keep our community clean. The county joins the Blacksburg-Christiansburg UPI Water Authority to provide a safe, clean, and abundant supply of water to citizens, business, and industry. Money has also been set aside for a place to aid animal shelter, and the county is working with County Humane to help pay for spaying and neutering of cats to assist owners and reduce the feral cat population. A partnership with Goodwill provides egger boxes at 3 consolidated sites for used clothes, shoes, and other items. The Retired Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP, celebrated its 40th anniversary and recognized 170 volunteers and guests. RSVP has a record number of 342 volunteers, serving 67,964 hours. With the participation of 148 volunteers, the Food and Fashion Show raised $3,056 for its programs. Education. Montgomery County is a great place for learning and provides exceptional educational opportunities. As students head back to class in the New Auburn and Blacksburg High Schools, the classrooms offering the most up-to-date technology and learning environment. Renovation of the old Auburn High will transform the school into a more spacious middle school. Fire, rescue, and police. Volunteers and professionals work together to provide a safe community. After many years of anticipation, the county held a grand opening ceremony for the new courthouse. A more than 100,000 square foot facility with 9 courtrooms incorporates many security features. The circuit court clerk's office successfully moved all records from 1773 forward to the new courthouse. More than historical intimidated features to preserve records was unveiled. Renovations are now underway on the former courthouse for the public safety building, which will house the sheriff's office and a state-of-the-art regional 911 system. Both construction projects are coming in under budget. Volunteer fire departments responded to 1,788 calls, an average of 150 calls per month. A FEMA grant of more than $300,000 to purchase self-contained breathing apparatus, resulting in savings and equipment compatibility for all 5 volunteer fire departments. Rescue squads responded to a total of 7,479 calls, an average of 20 calls per day. And the Sheriff's Office Communications Center received 33,621 calls in 2012, an average of 90 calls per day. Total arrests, 1,367. Total arrests for DUI, 116. The Sheriff's Office won the second place heat, helped eliminate auto theft award. The DUI Golf Cart program was conducted at Auburn, Eastern Montgomery, and Christiansburg high schools. 384 students went through the program. 228 fifth grade students graduated from there, the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program. The Sheriff's Office also achieved accredited agency status from the Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission. Achievements and accolades. Montgomery County provides quality community services and strives to be a good steward of resources. The Purchasing Office once again earned the Outstanding Agency Accreditation Achievement Award. Finance receives the Government Finance Officers Association Award for Excellence for the 25th year. The Montgomery Floyd Regional Library wins awards for the Public Library Directors Association, and the National Association of Counties recognizes their efforts with an Achievement Award. Supervisor Mary takes his 3rd grade class nominates a well-deserving county citizen, Nanny Harrison, for the Strong Men and Women of Virginia honor. A reception at the Christiansburg Library also honors her dedication to our community. Looking to the future, the county is charting a roadmap to provide the most efficient and effective technology to support citizens and business processes. The county's mapping software application is even reaching across international borders, and a Estonian firm is working on the latest generation technology to replace the county geographical information system known as GIS. Citizen engagement. The county strives to be a citizen-friendly government by providing transparency on the website and communications efforts, as recognized by the 2013 Sunny A+ Award, and 2 national awards for last year's annual report. The Board of Supervisors County Conversations held across the county allowed the elected officials to hear from and respond to citizen concerns. Participants in the 2nd annual Montgomery County Christiansburg Citizens Academy learned about local government from elected leaders and department heads, and took field trips to the water treatment plant, fire and rescue stations, and more. The county and 2 towns also teamed up to offer a Citizens Academy at Virginia Tech's class, an academy for senior citizens.
My name is Craig Meadows, and I'm the County Administrator for Montgomery County. I hope you've enjoyed learning more about the ways in which we provide quality services to the citizens of Montgomery County. The Board of Supervisors in our community continue to place high importance on public education and public safety. The opening of 2 new high schools and the renovation for a middle school will help ensure that our children have the latest technology and tools to assist their education. The new courthouse is providing a safe, secure, and quality facility that will serve our community for many years to come. The renovation of the old courthouse will make way for the new public safety building for the Sheriff's Office and also provide space for a new 911 regional communications department. I'm confident the county will continue on its successful path as our elected leaders provide direction and good stewardship for our resources. Thank you for your continued support as we strive to provide quality services and as we look ahead to the future. And thank you for watching our video today.
Special thanks to Levi's Gene Pool for providing the music for this year's annual report.
Thank you. As you can see, it was a busy year. And just as an update to a couple of those projects, the IGIS mapping portal will be launched tomorrow. And next week, Montgomery and Christiansburg are launching Chantel Channel 190, which will be our government cable channel in the county. So I hope you'll look for us on TV. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.
Any questions or comments before Ruth?
Great job.
I think it very well done. Thank you very much, Ruth. All right, the next item on the agenda is Virginia Department of Transportation, Mr. David Clark.
Good evening. Just a few updates and some information to give you besides just some of the ordinary maintenance stuff we've been working on, which is still a few storms. The weather's been a little bit kinder to us lately, but we have had a lot of dishes to do and pipes to clean out, just trying to catch up from a lot of that stuff. Also getting ahead of some of the paving. We've done a little bit of paving on got some Merrimack Road paved, some part that wasn't done last year. We've done some of that. That required some pipe replacement in front of that. We will also be doing some of the roads in Montgomery Farm subdivision at the end of Thomas Lane here in our next round. The bridge in Blue Springs on 620 is finished and open to traffic now. That replaced an old truss bridge that was there. So we don't have that detour around through there. It was quite a long detour. We are starting to work on a couple of revenue sharing projects, including about 0.3 of a mile at the end of that same road. We're getting the right-of-way now for the second part of Mount Pleasant Road, which will go from the bridge to the turn at Split Rail. Should be finishing the revenue sharing project on Yellow Sulphur Road, which will do, it's about 0.6 of a mile, I believe, on the southern end of Yellow Sulphur Road. They've done most of the grading, put most of the pipe in there. They're getting ready to put a hard surface on that. For the board's information, I'm going to request that the county administrator send me a letter just acknowledging that this has been done. This is instead of a public hearing. We have to have some sort of public notice when we do some major bridge projects that will require some kind of closing or otherwise disruption of traffic. In late winter, early spring next year, we're going to advertise a project that will do replace several culverts and bridges. And it will require closing Route 787 Dry Valley Road for anywhere from 6 to 8 months. In fact, I've sent a letter to County Administrator, Emergency Services, and Montgomery County School Transportation to soliciting comments on that. There's not a lot of way around that. That's going to be a complete superstructure replacement. That's everything from the piers up. Bridge won't be any wider. It'll have a different railing on it, but it will require closing it. Again, that's Route 787. It's Dry Valley Road. It goes between Childress and the Radford, Lovely Mount Road, right in there, Baines Chapel area, that road that connects through there. We'll also be doing Coalbank Hollow Road near Preston Forest entrances. That will not be a closure. That will probably have to put up a temporary signal to control traffic. We'll have to be open one lane at a time as we replace that pipe and put in a box culvert there.
And I did, the letter that you had provided to me, I did include in the board packet in tab A, so you've got that information that David just mentioned.
We'll do two of them on Lake Run, same type of thing. That will be what they call phase construction. It will be controlled by a traffic signal. And we'll replace one on Poverty Creek Road off of Mount Zion Road. And that will be on completely new alignment, so that won't affect traffic at all. Just wanted to let the board know that. That will be advertised along with some bridges in Floyd County, and it will be advertised next spring, probably awarded sometime late spring, and they will have approximately 1.5 years to do all the bridges. But they can only remain closed for the specified amount of time. They can't close it down at the beginning of the contract and leave it closed. So it'll be a 60-day thing on the ones I told you about. The only one that'll be closed is Route 787 Dry Valley Road, and that will be a 6 to 8 month closure for that. I just wanted to inform the board about that, and that's about all I have as far as updates. I'm glad to take any questions or anything the board might have.
Any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to ask something, and it's about a road that's not in my district, but I still like to kind of see if there's anything going on it. The Price's Fork Road, where all the new houses are going, I'm wondering if we were trying to stay ahead of the curve by going ahead and widening that road somewhat, somewhere, because, you know, we're adding, what, 300 and some, close to 400 new houses there?
Price's Fork Road?
Merrimack, isn't it?
I'm sorry, Merrimack
No,
Road.
you're talking about Huckleberry Ridge down there.
Yeah.
Merrimack Road.
Merrimack Road.
Yeah. Road down the wrong thing.
As far as improvement, no. We can only require that they have a proper entrance, which will probably include a turn lane, but improvements to the road would be part of the 6-year plan. As far as widening the road, it's a secondary road improvement.
Okay, I just wondered if,
Yeah.
where we stood on something like that.
If the board would like to put that on the 6-year plan and widen it, it can be done. But I can't do that. Otherwise, I just have maintenance money.
Thank you.
Well, anybody else?
Did you get the photos on Crab Creek?
Yes, and we will.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're getting ready to do. We have to just coordinate that environmental issues. To notify them before we do any work in the stream, so we'll be getting that permit here. That should be done in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, because those folks, and that was taken when it wasn't raining, and the creek is literally running through that tunnel.
Well, it's designed to do that. It has to do that. That's why the creek flows.
But there's no way that you can put some kind of culvert through it. I mean,
I'm talking about there's erosion right there on the outside of the tunnel, and we're going to fix that. But
as far as the creek is still going to run through the tunnel, and the water is about 6 to 8 inches deep.
It's like a low water bridge.
Okay. So there's no plans on anything trying to divert that in any way, shape, or form. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd just like to comment, David, on the part of the Merrimack Road that you're paving. That's really, I guess that's probably one of the best jobs that I've ever seen on that particular road. I especially went through that 3 or 4 different times, and I'm saying like, man, this is really nice. And it seemed like they widened it a little bit more. I knew that they put some drainage culverts in, replaced quite a few of them. And but it's a super nice road, and seemed like they are using the ample amount of asphalt. Sometimes the asphalt is about that thin, but it seems like it's about whatever the regulation is. It's thick and it's smooth. Talking about that road, Merrimack Road up, and I go through there quite often to look at the development at Huckleberry Ridge in there, and it seemed like I recall some kind of traffic impact study that they've done when they, but I understand it's supposed to be an entrance exit off the Merrimack side, and then off the other side, is it, I can't think of the road. High Top. There's a couple entranceways coming off of that property, if I'm not mistaken, instead of all of the traffic coming to one.
Yeah, I think so.
And I understand it's supposed to be developed in phases. Like it's not going to be full built out at the beginning. And so hopefully if it's built in phases that we can look at the possibility of adding it to our 6-year plan to do whatever we need to widen the road to carry the necessary traffic that's coming in and out of there.
Okay.
Or that could be a good project for our revenue sharing project, however you want to do that.
Anybody else?
I was just going to ask about 81. When is that ever going to be finished? And did you take care of the crack?
I believe the slide is now fixed, and they're supposed to be done this fall.
This fall.
Be like
How far does this fall go?
Well, it starts on the 21st, so.
It doesn't go, it goes till December.
It's got a completion date sometime in November.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know the date.
Can I mention?
Thank
Can I
you.
mention one thing?
Hmm?
Can I mention one thing?
Yeah.
David, just a follow-up on Merrimack Road. I did get a call today from a former board member who was very complimentary of the work that had been done, but he was also asking if the contractor was going to come back and taper into the driveways, because he said on some of the driveways it's like a 6 to 8 inch drop where they paved and didn't taper it back into the existing
They
driveways.
usually do it at the time. I'll have to take a look and see.
Okay, he said there were a couple. He mentioned 863 Merrimack as a particular problem.
863?
Yeah, he said that.
Marty Gardner.
I don't know. It was Steve Spradlin that called me. Yeah, he just mentioned that. He said the road looked great, but they didn't finish the tapers. It didn't appear to him. So, thank you.
And I have one question, David. You had mentioned Blue Springs Road. Is that going to be done in the next few weeks or months, or?
I don't know if we'll be able to get that paved, this paving.
Okay, so probably be after next
Yeah.
spring? Okay. Somebody was asking me about it today, and I
Yeah.
told him it was on the list and funded, and
It's
just,
probably one of the first ones. It will be a fairly easy one to do.
Yeah.
We're getting,
Yeah, it's only a few hundred
we're
feet.
Getting right of way. And we're already in the middle of, close to the middle of September.
yeah,
One thing I didn't mention though is that we, and the county's the one administering this. This is a revenue sharing project where we're, doing the rest of old Sourwood Road with the dirt glue product. The county got bids back to that. I think got a pretty good price, and they should be doing that sometime in October.
okay.
I wanted to make one comment. I know where all the traffic right now on Price's Fork Road is a lot of it's within the town limits. But as the schools have grown out there and the traffic has grown, and we have Price's Fork Elementary that's in the county limits, and there's plans within the town of Blacksburg to look at putting student housing that's going to impact that road a lot. So I was just bringing it to our attention that it could eventually sort of spill onto the county part of it. There are a lot of talk this past week about all the traffic on that road and all the different things that were going on. So I don't know if you heard any of that or not, but I keep thinking that eventually it's going to push down into the county part of it.
Okay.
Let me ask one more. You just mentioned the old Sourwood Road, and we had a note here that it's 17,000 over estimate. Does that ring a bell? Is that
I don't know. The county's administering that project. I have no idea what the.
okay? But
What?
the county's doing the whole thing for a mile. Okay.
If revenue sharing project goes over, a lot of times you can move money from previous revenue sharing projects that came under, which I think some did. And so if there's a shortfall in it, it can be, you can either get your money back from the state, you can split. VL take its half back, county take its half back, or you can move a certain amount to another project.
We're actually addressing that a little later tonight, so that's good.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get my P's and Q's in the road where I know where I'm at after five.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you
David.
all.
Thanks, David.
And the next item on the agenda is the NRCC Adult Transition Program, and Tracy Brockenbrough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for letting me be here this evening. The Office of Transitional Programs at New River Community College is part of the Workforce Development Office, we serve the jurisdictions of Floyd, Giles, Montgomery, and Pulaski counties, and the city of Bradford. Last year, Montgomery County schools carried the weight of adult education. In 2012-2013 school year, Montgomery County became part of New River's adult education program because of the rulings of Richmond. I want to tell you a little bit about the adult education program, just to let you know some of the things that are going on that are benefiting the county. We have GED prep classes, both fast-tracked and standard. We offer digital literacy, professional soft skills, workplace effectiveness skills, professional communication, effective job search techniques, being a good employee, and writing for work. The school district provides a grant match of 15% of the ABE grant, the Adult Basic Education Grant. Classes are held at New River Community Mall campus, both day and evening, the Christian Life Center in Blacksburg, the Meadowbrook Library in Shawsville, and the Montgomery County Jail. I personally teach at the Meadowbrook Library and the Montgomery County Jail. We had more than 200 at New River to graduate with their GED this past year, which is the most that they've ever had. I'd like to think that bringing Montgomery County on board was a big part of that. So we have Middle College, which provides for youth up to age 26 who desire to increase their college and career readiness skills by increasing their core skills, their life career skills, learning innovation skills, information media and technology skills. We offer a program in called Great Expectations, which serves current and former individuals who have been in foster care, ages 14 to 24. These individuals are provided access to the tools needed to be successful in both high school and college. The director of that program is at the mall campus on Thursday and Friday. We have a program called On-Ramp, which provides tuition assistance and textbook assistance for adults who have been dislocated from their jobs and desire an industry-recognized credential or college certificate or diploma in order to attain employment in a different career field. We're offering a new program called Plugged In Virginia. This is a program I'm personally the coordinator for, and in this program we are providing low-skilled adults with career pathways that incorporate 21st century skills. Sometimes they need a traditional GED curriculum to help them get there. We offer them the adult basic education skills that they need. Many of our students come to us because they've lost their job or they just couldn't get a job. We offer, through this program, we had CNC, we had HVAC, and we had welding last year. We were recognized by the state as having an outstanding Plugged-In Virginia program. In order to find another Plugged-In Virginia program, you have to go to Lynchburg, you have to go to Hillsville or Abington. So we are very proud of our program that we have here. The students get to have the same number of seat hours as a regular student, but we compress the time that they study to be able to accommodate them and to accomplish this quickly. We are offering ESL this year, English instruction, and civics instruction for those individuals who are trying to seek citizenship. And these are being offered only at the mall campus. So you guys have a big plus there. We also have the new Center for Literacy Volunteers in the New River Valley, located on Main Street in Christiansburg. Individuals will go from that site to all the other jurisdictions to offer literacy, but it is housed here in Christiansburg. They also teach math and reading, not just ESL. In the folders that I gave you, there's information about the various programs, flyers if you would like to pass them on to some point in your various jurisdictions. Do you have any questions that I can answer for you? Wanted to let you know what we have to offer.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Thanks for coming, number one.
Matt?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm interested, you said you worked with the regional jail, the Montgomery County Regional
Yes,
Jail.
sir.
Do you work at all with the Western Virginia, what is it, the
Western
Virginia Regional Jail?
No, sir, I do not personally.
No, you don't, but the New River Community College Educational
New
Program
River Community
does?
College offers classes at the jail in Dublin,
Okay,
and the jail in Roanoke County at Dixie Caverns
yeah,
is served through Salem City Schools.
okay, thank you.
I think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the Animal Hope Alliance. Ms. Betty Barchman.
Good evening, everybody. I am Betty Bartsmith, Treasurer of Animal Hope Alliance, a 501c3 organization since 2007. I've myself worked in animal welfare for over 30 years. Tonight, I want to make a case against a new shelter for cats. Now, I know some of my friends from Friends of Animal Care Control are back here. I'm only talking about cats, not dogs. I know the dogs need some help. But cats and cat sheltering is a different thing. But a lot of people are surprised to know that there is an argument against a new shelter. Because it seems like it would be such a good thing to be able to bring these cats in. But I hope to show tonight that a new shelter, one, is not required by law. It's bad for cats. It doesn't control cat populations, and it's not cost effective. Plus, it would be a giant step backwards for our county. And I say that because there are over 100 no-kill communities in this country, with more being added to the list monthly. And the no-kill community is defined as one that saves over 90% of its cats and dogs. It only euthanizes the suffering or untreatable. Well, Montgomery County should be on that list because less than 9% of our dogs entering the shelter are euthanized, largely thanks to Friends of Animal Care and Control. And no cats are euthanized. Of course, no cats are euthanized because our shelter doesn't accept cats. So we are already what many communities are striving for, and in fact paying big money to consultants to help them become, and that is a no-kill community. But if we build a new shelter that accepts cats, that will change overnight. Cats are not served well by shelters, much less so than dogs. Just like what happened in Giles and Pulaski counties. When they built the new shelter which accepted cats, citizens flocked to the shelter with any excess cats they had, and they continued to do so. The euthanasia rates of cats skyrocketed in these counties. So it seems to me that we would be taking a giant step backwards to follow them down that road. Now, I know that you supervisors strive to please, and you hate to tell a constituent that there's nothing that you can do to help them. But here's another way to look at it. There was a scientific survey conducted in 2007 that shows that 80% of the people in this country don't want cats rounded up and killed. So the person who calls and complains to you about a cat makes it seem that there's a big problem, when actually 80% of the citizens don't want to see that cat harmed. Not only did the vast majority desire humane treatment for the stray cat, but the county incurs a high cost in sending someone out to catch the cat, housing it for the required period of time, and then killing it and disposing of the body. And you should note here that the cost is not only monetary, but there's a great cost to the personnel who have to perform this killing. But it's an exciting time in animal sheltering right now, and a lot of things have changed since 5 years ago when the shelter proposal was first presented to the county. We now have Mountain View's Humane Spay-Neuter Clinic that has done over 18,000 spays and neuters in 2 years. Floyd County has been so successful with spay-neuter that their shelter has completely stopped taking cats altogether. Montgomery County has many managed feral cat colonies controlling populations in the traditional cat hotspots. A managed colony is a group of cats that have been trapped, neutered, vaccinated, and returned to their home. An essential element of this is called TNR, trap, neuter, return, is that the tip of the cat's left ear is removed while it's under anesthesia for the neutering, forever identifying it as a cat that is neutered and vaccinated. A caretaker provides food and shelter and monitors the colony for newcomers. Natural attrition reduces the number of cats once the kittens have stopped being born. In the bigger picture, there is a powerful no-kill movement occurring in this country. Just in the past year, influential animal control proponents of traditional sheltering have declared that animal shelters do not work for cats. It's now thought that cats should be kept out of shelters altogether. Dr. Kate Hurley, a shelter medicine specialist, has listed 8 things a shelter tries to do and shows how it does not do any one of these things well for cats. And the first thing would be to abide by all relevant laws. Now, I've been told for 30 years that I've lived here that our shelter grandfathered in as a dog-only shelter, and a new shelter would have to accept cats. But I recently discovered that most states, including Virginia, do not require animal control to pick up cats. Virginia Code 3.2-6546B, which covers county and city pounds, says that the governing body of each county or city shall maintain or cause to be maintained a pound, and shall require dogs running at large without the tag required or in violation of an ordinance passed pursuant to state law to be confined therein. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit confinement of other companion animals in such a pound. So we would have the option to take cats, but it's not required. The second goal of the shelter is to resolve citizen complaints and concerns. And that national survey found that if the 2 choices were to trap and kill a stray cat or to leave it alone, 81% of the people say leave it alone. 14% said trap and kill it. 5% had no opinion. But the 14% can be a vocal group. But is it right to use the taxes paid by the 81% to support a shelter that kills cats when they don't support that killing of cats? Another job of a shelter is to reunite lost pets with their owners. A study shows that 1 in 50 lost cats are reclaimed from a shelter nationwide. A cat is 13 times more likely to return home by non-shelter means. 2 out of 3 lost cats are found because they return home. Only 7% are found by way of a call or a visit to a shelter. Now, dogs are usually missed right away, and they can be reclaimed from the shelter. People think to call the pound when they lose their dog. But sometimes a cat will leave for a week or so, and by the time the owner realizes the cat's not coming home, it's too late. If they think to call the shelter at all, the cat's probably already been euthanized because the holding period is up. It's usually only 5 days. So it doesn't work for reuniting lost pets with their owners, and it also is not that good for finding new homes for cats. Nationwide, 80% of cats entering a shelter are killed. Like I just said, 2% are reclaimed. And that leaves less than 18% that are adopted out of a shelter. Now, there was an interesting study in Erie, Pennsylvania recently on the outcomes of cats that were put on a waiting list and not brought into the shelter. Of those cats, when they called back a year later, 14% had been adopted by their finder and 45% had been rehomed. So 59% of the cats that were on the waiting list found homes where something less than 18% found homes that were taken to the shelter. Another goal of a shelter is to maintain the health and welfare of the animals, but 30% of the cats get sick in a shelter due to stress stress caused by lack of quiet and space and needed attention. Also, the average cat loses 3 pounds after it comes into a shelter. Another goal is to euthanize suffering or dangerous animals. Well, cats on the street are mostly healthy. And of course, they've got 3 pounds to lose once they come into the shelter, so that shows right there they're pretty healthy. In a study, they found that way less than 1% of over 100,000 cats that were taken to spay-neuter clinics were euthanized because of poor health. And less than 10% of cats that enter a shelter are either sick or injured. The average life for a cat in a managed colony is 7 years. So you can see that there's not a big need to bring cats in because they are suffering on the street. And cats are almost never dangerous or aggressive, so this doesn't really apply either. Another goal would be to mitigate harm associated with free-roaming animals. Most shelter intake, though, is complaint-driven, and there's nothing scientific about it at all. Cats have a mixed effect since they control rodents, which can do other damage. Shelter intake of a random cat doesn't help any problem because it is too small in scope and too untargeted to make any difference. So stopping an ineffective program is not going to make harm to wildlife any worse. And what about diseases that cats may carry? Well, the fact is we don't get many diseases from cats, and they say if you wash your hands after working in your garden, then it's as simple as that, there's no problem. And the last thing a shelter tries to do is to reduce pet overpopulation. At any given time, though, way under 1% of all the cats are in shelters. So this has no impact at all on the population. To make a difference, 50 to 75% of all the cats would have to be brought in. And we know that this is not going to happen. Plus all the years spent rounding up and killing cats hasn't helped either. What does help to reduce populations is trap, neuter, return, as I discussed earlier, because it stops the kittens. Dr. Kate Hurley, our shelter specialist veterinarian, concludes that no community cats, and community cats include stray and ferals, should be taken to a shelter. Owner surrender should also be curtailed either by refusing them altogether or limiting them. The bottom line is, according to Dr. Hurley, that no more cats should be taken into a shelter than for which a healthy outcome can be guaranteed. So the trend is away from shelters, especially for cats. In their place, we have things like creative individual efforts, use of social media such as Facebook, Pet Finder, and Craigslist, and dedicated foster homes and rescue organizations such as Animal Hope Alliance. Animal Hope Alliance assists with problems. We get referrals sometimes from the dog pound where we can help. And we also have a program, we call it the Kitty Train, where several times a month we take a van load of cats up to Northern Virginia where they're needed by an organization that puts the cats in 30 PetSmart stores. I think we usually transport around 200 kittens out of our community every year that way. Trap, neuter, return, though, is also essential. Many communities have adopted a program that they call feral freedom. A cat is neutered and returned to its home instead of being put in a shelter. When neighborhood residents are informed that their stray cat is coming back, neutered, vaccinated, and ear-tipped to prove it, it's extremely rare that there are complaints. And this is being done in many communities. This has been their experience because, again, the American people are compassionate and really don't want the cats harmed, especially if there's a humane solution. Neutering the cat stops the annoying behaviors such as fighting, yowling, mating, and producing kittens. The cats become good neighbors, which also control the rodent population. I have an example of a local creative individual effort that's on Craigslist right now. It's a person advertising some kittens or offering some kittens for adoption, and she explains, I rescue cats and kittens. I'm not an organization, and I don't have a dedicated kennel or volunteer staff. I just saw a lot of abandoned and feral cats in my neighborhood, felt really bad for them, and decided to help by feeding, spaying and neutering, and taking them to the vet. If you'd like to check out the sweet kittens and cats that grace my home, but who really need to move on, please click Cats for Adoption and see the descriptions of each feline. Then read about my adoption procedure and contact me. I do not accept cats and kittens. After the ones listed here have moved on, there are more in my neighborhood that need tending to. Well, I know that this person will eventually solve the problem of the stray cats in her neighborhood because I've seen it happen over and over again. If we had a shelter for cats, though, many of these cats would have likely ended up in the shelter and been killed. Often, well-meaning folks take a cat to a shelter thinking that they're doing a good thing and that the cat will find a wonderful home. But how wrong they are. I can tell you firsthand that Montgomery County doesn't have one bit more of a cat problem than surrounding counties that are killing cats by the hundreds. Our residents have learned humane ways to live with the cats. Our organization manages about 20 cat colonies, mostly in and around shopping centers, apartments, Section 8 housing, and mobile home parks. In every case, the number of cats in these colonies is a fraction, usually 1/3 or less, of what it was only 6 years ago when the trap-neuter return was begun. And the great thing is that this has been done by volunteers at no cost to the county. Right now, we are a no-kill community, and it's working pretty well. Our animal control folks do a good job in handling calls and empowering citizens to solve problems without taking in their unwanted cats. A new cat shelter would cost millions of dollars and is not really needed. Building a new shelter is only the beginning of the county's cost. The recent newspaper article said that a new shelter would house 109 dogs and 52 cats. That's about 3 times as many dogs as now, plus all those cats. Operation costs would skyrocket with over 4 times as many animals to care for. You would not run it with 4 or 5 employees like it's done now. Localities have found time and time again that it is much less expensive to spay or neuter a cat than it is to deal with it at a shelter. It has been shown in many localities that tax money spent on spaying and neutering is a tremendous investment and almost always results in immediate, many-fold savings in animal control costs. And you guys have been insightful enough to invest now $60,000 in our local spay-neuter Mountain View clinic, and that's wonderful. The dog shelter could be remodeled and replaced, and that's needed. A shelter works a lot better for dogs, and thanks largely to the Friends of Animal Care and Control, most of our county dogs are being saved. I'm here to tell you that the idea of a cat shelter is outdated and not really needed or wanted by the folks who love cats and understand the problem. It is expensive and it's not humane for cats. I would like to see next year on the 2014 annual report, Montgomery County, a no-kill community. Right now we're a no-kill community and we would like for it to stay that way.
Wow.
Any comments or questions?
Yes, thank you for your information.
Okay.
Very much.
I have a copy of this.
That'd be good.
Give it to him. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Amateur Radio Association pro zoning amendments. And Ms. Kay Craigie.
Thank you very much. My name is Kay Craigie. My husband and I moved to Montgomery County in 2007, and I am the president of the American Radio Relay League. That's the National Association for Amateur Radio Licensees here in the United States. We have something over 160,000 members nationwide. The organization was founded in 1914, so we're almost 100 years old. It was founded in Hartford, Connecticut, and that's still where our organizational headquarters are located. But like the other members of our board of directors, I'm a volunteer. So I live where I live and I do what I do. My husband and I are both former educators, and so we find Montgomery County a particularly congenial place to live, and would do even if our 2 grandchildren were not in the area. I've been president of the organization since 2010, and I have been an elected volunteer official of the organization in one capacity or the other for 27 years. Amateur radio, according to the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission's rules, I'm going to read this if you'll pardon me, is a service for the purpose of self-training, intercommunication, and technical investigations carried out by duly authorized persons solely with a personal aim and without pecuniary interest. So the amateur radio service is non-commercial. In fact, the terms of our licenses forbid us from accepting any kind of compensation for the communications that we engage in. The regulations for the amateur radio service are found in Title 47 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 97. And there are also international regulations that are promulgated by the International Telecommunications Union, which is an agency of the United Nations. In order to be a radio amateur, you have to pass 1 or more examinations covering electronics, rules and regulations of the Federal Communications Commission, and what we might call best practices, things like safety and good operating procedure on the air. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, there are approximately 18,500 licensed radio amateurs, and there are approximately, and this is a very soft number, approximately 350 licensees in Montgomery County, including the towns of Blacksburg and Christiansburg. I say it's a soft number because some of the licensees were students at Virginia Tech when they took their license examinations, and they may have moved on but not yet filed a change of address with the FCC. But that gives you a ballpark idea of how many licensees reside in Montgomery County, Blacksburg, and Christiansburg. The major activities that make amateur radio an asset to the community, well, one that springs immediately to mind is education, because amateur radio gives us the opportunity to learn firsthand and hands-on about modern cutting-edge communications technology. And my organization, the ARRL, has promoted this in our nation's classrooms. Our Education and Technology project enables classroom teachers to use amateur radio in the classroom to achieve educational objectives and to meet educational standards. And I am reminded that the Blacksburg Middle School was one of the beneficiaries of that program at one time. The teacher who was a supervising teacher is no longer on the staff, but there was a direct benefit from the American Radio Relay League to students in Montgomery County. Another thing that we do is technical experimentation, and of course this is very relevant to Virginia Tech, where a number of the students in the technical programs have become radio amateurs if they were not already at the time they became students at Virginia Tech. There's a very active and vibrant student-led amateur radio club on the Tech campus, and my husband and I sometimes go there to assist with license examination administration. And they're just the most exciting bunch of young people that you ever saw in your life. It's just a privilege to be around them, and they will certainly reflect credit on their university as they move forwards in their careers. And as I travel around the country speaking to amateur radio organizations, hardly ever do I finish a talk without having someone come up and say, I went to Virginia Tech. This has happened to me in Oklahoma, in New Mexico, in places far, far away from here. So technical experimentation and education are very important to us. Another very important aspect of amateur radio as a resource for the community is our volunteer work in emergency communications. When governmental agencies such as emergency management or the National Weather Service or charitable relief organizations such as the American Red Cross need additional communications support when there is a disaster, radio amateurs are trained, equipped, prepared, and organized to provide that assistance with the very most modern kinds of communications abilities. And it's a great honor to be able to assist our communities that way. My husband and I are active volunteers with the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Blacksburg at their Skywarn Severe Spotter Desk. We work with a large number of trained spotters on amateur radio to gather information of what's really going on the ground, not just in the radar up in the sky, but what's actually happening on the ground in our communities. And the National Weather Service personnel are very supportive and very appreciative of what these volunteer communicators are able to do when there is severe weather threatening our area. In recognition of the value of the amateur radio service, both in our communities and to our country nationwide, in 1985, the FCC published an order called PRB-1, or Private Radio Bureau Number 1. The Private Radio Bureau at that time was the agency of the FCC that regulated amateur radio. It's long gone, but the document that they published is still in effect. It recognizes the importance of having effective antennas for the amateur radio service to achieve our objectives in the public interest. This document mandates reasonable accommodation of amateur radio antennas and support structures. It's not a blank check, nor do we expect that, but it requires that local zoning codes provide reasonable accommodation. I should note that this does not have any effect whatsoever on private land use restrictions, such as the conditions, covenants, and restrictions. Those are a separate thing altogether. In 1998, the General Assembly of Virginia adopted a change to the Code of Virginia that incorporates the provisions of PRB-1 into the laws of the Commonwealth. This is a very excellent piece of state legislation and is very deeply appreciated by all of us who are radio amateurs here in the Commonwealth. Now, the Montgomery County Planning Commission has recently proposed an ordinance regulating amateur radio towers in the county. And we know that this does not apply to the towns of Blacksburg and Christiansburg, which have their own zoning authorities. This is, in my opinion, a very positive and proactive step taken by the Planning Commission because it prevents ordinances that may be adopted in order to regulate towers in some other communication services from accidentally having a detrimental effect to amateur radio licensees and running contrary to the Virginia statute. The Planning Commission has shown a completely positive and reasonable attitude in developing the draft ordinance, which appears to be the minimum necessary to achieve the purposes of having an ordinance. It is in line completely with the Virginia statute. There was one small problem that was accidentally introduced during some editing on the fly during the last commission meeting. I've drawn that to the attention of the Planning Commission, and I'm absolutely confident that that will be resolved in a satisfactory way. Just an example of the kind of attitude that we appreciate so much from the Planning Commission. At my request, the ARRL's General Counsel has reviewed the proposed ordinance. His name is Christopher Imlay. He's a Washington, D.C. communications lawyer, and he has seen many, many ordinances. And he has reviewed the proposed ordinance, and he has written a letter to the Planning Commission giving the proposed ordinance the highest marks. This is with the one little glitch when we can get that revised. In a phone conversation, Mr. Imlay told me that it is truly an excellent ordinance, and he believes that if it is adopted by you ladies and gentlemen, that it could potentially serve as a model ordinance for other jurisdictions seeking to adopt a fair and reasonable regulation. I encourage you to adopt this ordinance when it comes before you for a vote. Unfortunately, I will not be able to be at the public hearing because I have to represent our country at a Western Hemisphere Conference of Amateur Radio Societies. However, I have spoken to Professor Robert McGuire, who is the Director of Research at the Hume Center at Virginia Tech. He's a very articulate and knowledgeable amateur radio operator, and if all goes well, he should be able to attend the public hearing to respond to any questions or further input at that time. I would be happy to respond to any questions or comments that you may have, either now or at whatever time and place you consider appropriate. Thank you.
Any questions of the board or comments?
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I have one comment.
Yes, sir.
Very well.
When I was a young boy, about 5-6 years ago, I guess,
You remember back then?
my stepfather was the head of the civil defense in a little town called Roanoke, Minnesota. And the AARL was very, very important to that organization. Are you still running the same frequency band? Wasn't that something like 32 megahertz or?
We don't have privileges at that order of spectrum. Amateur radio has little bits of radio spectrum throughout the radio frequency spectrum, which allows us to experiment with the different kinds of communications and to study propagation of radio waves throughout the Earth's atmosphere and beyond, because we have satellites in space and we can communicate with the International Space Station. In fact, that was done at the Boy Scout Jamboree in West Virginia a short time ago. But we still do have the FCC is very good to us, the international community is very good to us to allow us the opportunity to experiment at many different orders of spectrum. And of course, the most important thing that we do, certainly in this country and many others, is to assist what used to be called civil defense, now emergency management, to make sure that the public has the communications that you need when something bad happens. In fact, we're going to be having a major exercise next month. The lead organization is the Virginia, it's the Virginia Mountain Region and of the American Red Cross will be the lead agency. And the scenario will be a recreation of the 1985 floods. We're not going to really do the water thing. This will just be
We already have
a very, very safe and moderate exercise. But in doing these exercises, which are carried about every 2 years, roughly speaking, they're very realistic scenarios that are based on disasters that have happened in our part of the world, so that we can practice about how we would assist agencies like the Red Cross and the Weather Service in the undesirable circumstances if something like that were to happen again. So yes, we are still very much active, maybe not always with the same frequencies, but with the same spirit.
I really appreciated that organization when I was young, and I haven't really related to it in years and years, but I do know a couple of people in Montgomery County who are amateur operators, and it's really something you do out of your heart.
Yes, sir. We are called amateurs partly because we're not allowed to receive compensation, but also from the Latin root, we do it because we love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I had asked her to come because she had gave a similar presentation to the planning committee, and I thought that this board needed to hear that information.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you for coming before this board as well.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is public address. We have 2 people signed up, and when I call your name, if you'll please come to the mic and state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes, please. And the first person is Ashley Montjay. Did I pronounce that right?
No, it's okay. It's Montjoy. Nobody ever does.
Oh, Montjoy, I'm sorry. It looked like an A. I see where your Y was hooked to your O.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Ashley Montjoy. My address is 2947 Catawba Road. I'm here this evening just really as a citizen. Moved here about 5 years ago. I'm a Virginia Tech alumni. Active member of the Chamber of Commerce, a T20 13 leadership participant, and serve on the golf committee for the New River Valley Home Builders Association. And I volunteer for the animal shelter. 2009, I first visited the animal shelter, and it was apparent to me then that, well, let me put it like this, I left wondering how the word shelter could still be applied, frankly. Why wasn't this building a condemned building? And I left the month before my thesis was due with a 3-month-old beautiful puppy, so it was a good outcome. So I'm happy and I appreciate the fact that the county has set aside $1 million worth of funding for a new shelter. And I'll beg your forgiveness if I start to say things have already been discussed. My understanding is now we're on a brink of decisions, right? From planning, the building, the purpose, how it will function, and also funding. Is this going to come from county reserves, from a capital campaign? And so really can you hear me if I don't speak into this? Okay, great. What I'm here to state is, earlier this evening we saw a video which purpose was to highlight everything that is good in our community, and it did that very effectively. But it also had me wondering things like, how many phone calls a day does animal control receive? What are we going to do about creating a facility? It's not just a shelter, but a place where perhaps the Humane Society is next door. Perhaps there's land there for a park that there's a membership people want to go to. They want to pay for it because it's nice, it's pretty, it's well kept. It's a dog park that can generate revenue for the long term. I think times like these, when you have this project in front of you that's never really at the top of anyone's priority list, because we fail too often to look at how it impacts our community holistically, which is, I live down in the valley. Every year, never fails, we're overrun by cats and dogs in May and June, and I can't tell you how many of my neighbors have either had to shoot a dog or they heard of people shooting dogs. That's an education issue, it's an awareness issue. This is, from my standpoint, not just a county issue, but it's an issue of the two towns. In the same video, we heard of CLASS, right, a leadership program for senior citizens where the two towns and the county work together. So I would say, isn't that possible now from a funding issue to generate more revenue from an issue that impacts negatively the apartment council in Blacksburg? They certainly don't like having to enter apartments where carpets are soiled and animal feces and urine and bacteria has entered into the air ducts. That's a public safety issue, health issue. So really what I'm here to state is, I think just if you look around the community's already there. We need a little bit more of a step. And about 2.5 weeks time, Heartstrings Pet Lodging and Spa, which is an animal boarding daycare facility, and myself, and we did a yard sale. And granted, we needed more organizational time, but with one yard sale, we were able to raise over $600. In 2 days, stepping out, the Friends of Montgomery County Animal Control raised over $800. So small steps can lead to large changes, and it doesn't often require a lot of funding. So my only suggestion would be, as y'all figure out these issues, to please, when ideas are put forth, as opposed to the but that so often comes when a suggestion for change is presented, but to perhaps think of how can we all work collectively to create something that will sustain for the long term. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Marilyn Wheaton.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Wheaton. I live at 508B Harrell Street in Blacksburg. I've been volunteering with FACC since 2009, and I've been going to the shelter between 4 and 7 days a week for the past 3 years. So I spend a lot of time there. And honestly, the shelter is falling down around us. It's completely unfair to ask your officers and volunteers to work in conditions that include insects, flooding, now there's sewage backup, and the general crumbling of the entire building. Not to mention the conditions in which the animals live, which y'all have seen through some recent communication. The entire shelter system that we have is grossly behind the times. We need a security system. Just this morning, there was a guy trying to tie a dog to the fence and leave her. He just happened to be noticed by the cleaning crew and was told he would have to come back during office hours. We also need a database so we can effectively keep track of the dogs that come and go and the people who are, continuously surrendering dogs and the court cases that the officers have to deal with. We do also need a place for cats to go. I'm not talking about going out and rounding up cats, just taking in owner surrenders. We get calls every day. I usually answer at least one a day, and I'm only there a couple hours, asking why we can't come and pick up their cat. And we get some pretty colorful comments on when they find out we don't pick up cats. People are shocked that we don't pick them up. I've been told personally that people are going to throw kittens over the fence and let someone else deal with them, that they're going to shoot them because they're tired of them, or poison them with antifreeze, and all of that is completely unacceptable. We have no way of identifying the callers, so we can't even stop them from doing that because we don't even have caller ID. So a new shelter does not mean the rounding up and killing of cats. I think TNR is great, the trap, neuter, release, and I say leave the feral colonies alone. They're not bothering anybody. But construction of a new facility wouldn't change the law that lets those cats roam and live where they are. It would simply provide a recourse for the people who are either unable or unwilling to take care of their cats anymore. A great deal of time and money has been spent on a new shelter plan. We have a workable plan in place, and it's been looked at from all angles. We know it's appropriately priced and that it's suitable for the demands of the county. Completing a new facility as outlined in the 2009 feasibility study will bring the conditions of the animal shelter and their employees and volunteers up to modern standards. It'll bring the Montgomery County Animal Control Facility and the entire operation into the 21st century where it belongs. The time for the new shelter is long past. Building a new one based on the plans developed in the feasibility study is the right thing to do, and you all can make a difference right now by getting this project moving. And hopefully next year we can see a new shelter already built in that lovely video that we saw earlier. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. There's nobody else signed up for this public address, but if there's anyone else in the audience who would like to speak, please step forward. You give your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. Seeing no one, we'll close this public address session. The next item is an addendum, and we have one. It is transfer of $30,000 in revenue sharing funds from the Craigs Creek Road and Allegheny Springs Road Revenue Sharing Project to the Old Sourwood Road Revenue Sharing Project. And do I put that in new business, Marty?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's under old business.
It's under old business? Okay. All right.
Needs to be voted on and added to the agenda.
Pardon?
Needs to be voted on to be added to the agenda.
Right. So, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Palotis?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay. And the next item is consent agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Pardon?
Did she move it?
Yeah, it's a second.
On that thing that we just voted, did we vote to have this as it is in this?
We voted to put
Add
it
it to
on
the agenda.
all business.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah, but you haven't voted on this itself yet.
Where it went.
Yeah.
Old business.
So it'll come up when we get old business. Okay.
Now we're doing roll call.
Consent agenda.
Yeah, I seconded it, and then we have to
Okay.
vote roll call.
Any discussion on consent agenda?
I had a question, actually. I didn't need to pull anything, but I was wondering if Craig or Carol could just clarify the social services reconciliation that's there. There was something about reduced funding from the state, or was I reading that right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Each year when we do the budget, we have to estimate generally based on the information we have at the time as to what the funding amount will be from the state and federal sources. it was overstated at this point, and what this does is reconcile it back to the exact allocation that we would not have found out about until the 1st of May. So this takes those numbers with what the state's provided us in consultation with the Department of Social Services and reconciles those numbers to the actual anticipated revenue to be received.
It's basically a true up to what they actually provide us versus what our estimate was.
Okay. Do we estimate any reduction in services based upon this significant reduction in funding? No?
Not generally, no.
Not generally, no.
We don't anticipate any changes in the number of personnel or anything. Most of the detail behind it is in purchase of services, not actual service employees or personnel. It's in items that are public assistance, the types of things that are purchased, and generally at a level, it was estimated at a level that would have meant some growth in those services, and that's not going to be realized, and the funding was not then put toward it. So
okay, so our services are remaining kind of static rather than increasing. Yes. There was the potential of an increase, but then
we estimated an increase, and the state and federal sources did not come through.
Okay.
I don't know if Ms. Perkins has anything to add to that.
No, I think the board is aware of what's going on because Larry maintains very close conversations with our finance department and they with him. So, it's always helpful to have more money to increase a lot of the services that need to be done. But, I think this is the way it operates most of the time.
And this is not new. It's something we do every year. Yeah. And some years we do get some additional funds, and that's added back. The last several years, we've not gotten any additional revenues, and it stayed basically flat.
Even with our state surplus?
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
I know the answer to that.
Right. Well, it would be nice if we could get it from another source. And I'm not sure what the local people wish to have happen.
Anybody else? We're not pulling anything off the...
No, I got to vote.
All right. Roll call, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Freed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Chair Paulettis?
Aye.
7 ayes.
All right, the next item is old business, and the first item under old business is designate approximately 28,500 acres of Little River watershed as the Little River Special Projects Area. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Freed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Paulettis?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, the next item is our addendum, a resolution approving the transfer of $30,000 in revenue sharing funds from the Craigs Creek Road and Allegheny Springs Road revenue sharing projects to the Old Sourwood Road revenue sharing project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Have some discussion on it. And the discussion has to do with the numbers here that I look at. It says it's $17,000 over what it was first thought to be. But then you got 17, then down here you got another 30 on this new paper that we've got here. If 17 takes care of the extra that is needed by now, we surely should know whether that's going to be where we're at, I would think.
You can answer that? 17 is the number that was off, that the extra amount of funds that was needed. what we decided was to make it 30 just in case there were some other contingencies along the way that we're not expected until the project's done. If it's not used, it'll be surplus funds that can be rolled over to another project in the future. So we're just trying to anticipate not having to come back another time for this project. If it goes $2,000 over, we would have the funds there to take care of any change order or contingency that might come up.
So really is there or is there not reason to think that the 17,000 is going to be enough or not enough? And is the true figure really the $17,000 or is it the $30,000?
Well, right now the figure is $17,000.
And the $17,000 is based on some estimated additional materials.
Correct.
The additional $13,000, as I understanding, is in case they encounter conditions when the work's being done that weren't anticipated in the
Correct.
Contract.
It's bid on a per unit basis, so it may take an extra truckload or two of stone, or it may take an extra truckload or two of dirt blue material to get the project completed, and the purpose is just not to have to come back before the board. Each time there might be a small change that's over the amount. So that's really just that 12% contingency is just kind of in there as a safeguard just in case.
Okay, now let's back up a minute, because you just used the $13,000 figure. And if you put the 13 with the 17, you get $30,000. That is very true. But if you come down here a paragraph down below that, I'm reading $7,415 and $22,585.
Which equals 30,000.
Is that
That's 30,000.
in addition to the 17 at the top? Or is
No.
it part of?
That's where the $30,000 would be coming from. There's $7,400 of surplus funds on Craigs Creek Road, and that project is complete. So we're proposing to transfer all those surplus funds from that project, and then the remaining $22,585 will come from the surplus of $62,000 that's on the Allegheny Springs project. So there would still be a surplus of about $41,000 on the Allegheny Springs project, even after we pull this $22,000 off.
Okay, well, I've got plenty of places to put some of
Yeah,
that.
so the remaining there would be transferred to something else before that project's closed out, to another revenue sharing project.
Okay. I've seen these figures, the figures just weren't matching up from one paragraph to the next.
So you can just go back and forth. It doesn't really matter whether the extra money would be used in his area or in some other area.
It's up to the board. They can transfer it to any other current revenue sharing project, or you can request the money be returned to the county as well. So, but traditionally we've rolled it over to other revenue sharing projects just to make sure we had sufficient funds to cover.
Okay.
And if you don't need it to cover it, goes back to where it came from.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It goes back into the surplus. It goes back into surplus that can be
For another-
reallocated.
Redesignated.
It wouldn't go back to Allegheny Springs because that project's done, so it'd be transferred to whatever other project you want to transfer it to.
If it's not used, it'll be held in reserve, so when you do other revenue sharing projects, you can reassign that surplus to those other
Okay,
projects.
when you say you say the person who is representing a particular area?
The board.
See, that's what I was asking.
District?
No, it's
I mean,
just
if
a
it came from
pot.
my district, I would expect it to come back to my district if we didn't need it.
But
That's up to the.
well, that's what I just asked, can
Right,
it
it's
shift
really-
anywhere?
It can be shifted to any project, any district, any project, anywhere within the revenue sharing program. It just has to be a current project in the revenue sharing program. So, so there may be a case where it came from a project in District E, but there are no other road projects in District E, so it could certainly be transferred to District C. Or
That's totally a board's call.
yeah. So the only criteria really is that it has to be a current revenue sharing project.
How many of those do we have?
We have
6.
5 or 6.
We have 7 right now.
7.
And see, the problem I have with that, and I'm going to vote to do it, but the problem I have with that is that I've got a project right now that is underfunded.
Which one is that?
What is it? Mount
Pleasant?
Pleasant.
It's
Yeah.
underfunded?
Yeah, it's underfunded because all we can get is some of the banks cut off.
Is that on
We can't
revenue
get enough-
sharing?
We don't have enough money
Is
to
it-
do the whole thing.
Is that on revenue sharing, Gary?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you're taking away from something that I've already been taken away from to get it, to have that money sitting there, because we didn't pave as far as we thought we was going to do on the last one. But now it's been taken away even further when I need that money back on the revenue sharing deal that on Mount Pleasant, because all we can do is cut a few banks back, not fix the road. So therein is my dilemma, that I've got to show people that, hey, yeah, we had this money, but
Well,
we give it away.
I've
That don't
been
work so good.
I've been behind the 8 ball in my area for a long time, and you know that. And I feel like if this road works the way we hope it does, we'll get more miles per dollar down the road.
Well, you better hope it don't take none of this then, because it's getting closer and closer to what it's gonna cost.
Well, it's
Yeah.
nowhere close yet. But, that's the point of doing this project.
I understand. I understand why you're doing it, but at the same time,
And-
I understand what my people are gonna say when they say,
Well, I've got
well,
people
you had
too.
money and you
Yeah.
had some money extra left over, and now you've taken that away, and
I've got people too, and we've been sitting for a long time without a lot of road.
Well,
So,
can I just say something?
we finished hers,
It's,
you know.
it's the citizens of the whole county's money. It's not just like in that district. So all of the districts contribute to this money that's being used in certain districts. And I understand what you're saying, Gary, I understand what you're saying, Jim, but let's remember that the money comes from everybody.
Yeah.
yes, but it was already designated to mine.
Well, it was designated to that project.
For that project.
For that project.
It's like, then you have to come back and look at the whole scenario again, like at the priorities, like where should it go? And then that's where I guess the board decides. But then you make your case for where it should go, like you're doing now.
Who decided Old Sourwood Road?
VDOT.
What?
VDOT.
Well, the board.
The board
supervisors-
decided.
VDOT advised that road. The board
Yeah.
voted
But
for
I'm
it.
saying right now, who decided that?
Well, that was one of our last, on our FY14 projects. We applied for 4 different projects. One was another section of Mount Pleasant Road, which we got funded for. A section of Brush Creek and Old Sourwood, and then a small piece of Blue Springs Road. This one has come quickly because it's locally administered, and we're using kind of a new alternative product to do this road as almost kind of a demonstration project, if you will. And it needed to be done before the cold weather sets in. So that's why this one's kind of been on a fast track, so to speak. That and the fact that we're locally administering that project, and VDOT's not administering it. So.
And this is something I'd like to look at for some of our future products, is locally administrating them.
Do we
Because we can
have-
save a lot of money doing that.
Do we have the correct equipment to?
The contractor that bid on it has the
On
equipment.
the last one that we did that way, we didn't have the right
Right.
equipment to do
The
it.
contractor that bid on it has the right equipment. It was sent out to 6.
It was sent directly to 6 contractors that
2
worked with the
responded.
product, and then it was also advertised and
Yeah.
went through the procurement process.
2 responded, and the bids were quite far apart, about double. But it's a smaller contractor that's doing it, and he does have the machine to do it. And he's done some projects like this before.
May I just say something?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know how it got on. I mean, how did I miss something when you said how we chose Old Sourwood Road
Last year,
rather than another project?
Last year, when we did revenue sharing projects applications for FY14, the board chose 4 projects to to apply for, and we applied for all those for a total of $500,000, and all those were awarded by VDOT.
So has
Let me back up, and I know what you're asking, and I can help you.
Okay.
Okay. Last October, we requested, well, actually, March, I guess, a year ago, we requested VDOT to look at this product.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, and in October, we did a test of 300 feet.
Right.
Okay,
I remember that.
so when it came around again, one of the recommendations by VDOT was to complete that road. Okay,
You did 300 feet on Old Salwood Road.
yeah, of a mile. It's a
Of a
mile
mile.
long. It was a mile long. You saw it when we went out on our road viewers.
I didn't go on.
You didn't go. Everybody else did. You know.
What I would wonder there, and like I say, I'll vote to let that go through. But what really gets me a little bit there is that you did the 300 foot to where you would have something that you could study to see what it was going to do. So saying you're getting a mile now to study what it's going to do, don't hold much.
Well, the board passed it. VDOT recommended it when we were doing our, looking at revenue sharing. And it's, that's it. So, I don't know what else to tell you.
And you asked for it to be on a fast track back about 3 months ago.
The reason being is I didn't want to wait another year by not putting it down till 2014 fiscal year was over. And that was it.
Okay.
We had the money. I wasn't expecting the overrun. We don't have an overrun until the job's done. We may have a good portion of that back. And that's all I got to say. Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you. All right. Well, the next item is to go into work session. Do I have a motion?
So
please?
moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
7 ayes.
I would like
Yeah.
to,
Take a break.
I'd like to have a break.
Okay. Why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, party.
The next item on the agenda is our animal shelter presentation by Mr. Meadows.
Thank you, sir. Well, during the break, I had a 3-hour presentation, but I've trimmed it to 2 hours and 45 minutes, so I'll try to.
And you've got 5 minutes, please.
That's good.
Please give your name and address.
Yes, ma'am. As I mentioned to you at, I guess it was our last July meeting when we talked about this, we said that we would come back in August with some recommended next steps for moving the animal shelter project along. And due to 2 of the board members being out at the last meeting in August, we deferred this to the first September meeting so we could have a full audience this evening. What I've got put together for you tonight is just our thoughts from staff as to next steps to move forward to keep this animal shelter project moving forward. There's some key decisions that need to be made by this board in order for us to do that. And as we go through the next couple of slides, we'll talk about what those decisions are. Probably the biggest decision that we need direction on from the board is, do we move forward with the current design? As you've heard presented a couple of times and a couple of folks mentioned tonight, there were a number of hours of staff and volunteer time involved in the development of the current plan. And we also had a paid consultant who developed the proposed shelter plan based on this input. I wasn't here when that was done. I think the final report was presented right after I came, but I know there was a lot of meetings and a lot of discussion with various stakeholders as to whether that plan would be realistic for the county moving forward. So if the current plan is not utilized, in talking with staff folks, we would recommend an additional year of time be added to some of the time frame I'm going to talk to you about tonight, because we'll need to procure an architect, hold community meetings to develop a new plan, and have the plan reviewed and approved by the board. There have been several suggestions made as far as modifications to the existing plan, maybe making it smaller, maybe doing it in phases, changing the facade or the structure of the facility. We don't have folks on staff that can evaluate that. We can give you some general ideas, but if the board wants to go in a direction other than the direction that we have laid out with the existing plan, we're going to have some resources to help us figure that out. The other two key questions that need to be answered in addition to do we move forward with the current plan are, one, determining the impact of a new shelter on the county garage. The key questions there are, should the county garage operations be relocated, or should additional land be purchased to accommodate the new shelter facility if we decide to move forward? And secondly, should other options such as privatization for the garage be considered? There's the real possibility that if we do a study, we may determine that we can privatize the work that's currently going on at the garage and not even need in the near term, or for that matter for the long term, to construct a new garage facility. That may be something we could outsource. We've had general discussions on that, but we need some information to be able to confirm that conclusively. The other question would be, or the other issue that needs to be addressed, is determining the impact of a capital fundraiser on the timeline. Should the timeline for construction of a new facility be dependent on a fundraising campaign if funds are available to proceed with construction now? If the board decides to move forward with a plan, the question is going to be, do we say that we're not moving forward until we get a portion of those funds raised, or do we move forward with a plan, allocate the money to address that plan now, and then use the fundraising opportunities to offset that for other future capital? And then the other question that needs to be asked is, what would the impacts to the project be if the fundraising goal is not met? So the three things I need for the board to really think about and have some discussion on in our work session is, one, do you want to move forward with the current plan, or do you want to evaluate other options? Secondly, if you're prepared to move forward with any plan, we need to determine the impact of the shelter on the county garage, because if we decide to leave the garage where it is, that's going to require purchase of additional property. And third, we need to talk a little bit about the capital fundraising as far as the timeline. Do we move the project along and fully fund it on the front end and use the campaign monies to offset that, or do we not move forward until we reach a certain goal of fundraising? A couple of facilities that have been built in the last several years, I'd ask Carol to look around and try to find a couple of examples. There's a couple more out there, but these were two that were interesting. The city of Chesapeake probably has built one of the most expensive animal shelters in the state in recent years. They built a 29,000 square foot facility for about $10 million. Now that is a huge facility that has some very nice educational components in the facility, and it serves a much larger population, over double what our population is in Montgomery. Prince George County, which is a county that's a little more than a third our size, recently built a facility for $2.2 million, which is about 7,500 square feet. The facility that we have been discussing is about a $3.5 million facility. The estimate was 3.1 plus or minus 10% contingency, so it's about $3.5 million for about 11,000 square feet. So you can see they come in all over the map. This is just a slide that shows, based on the median of the two that we looked at, the small one and the large one, for a median population of about 133,000, 18,000 square feet, and $6.1 million. And we're looking at a facility that would cost about a little over half that. The questions related to fundraising that I think are important for us to discuss are, what is the expected goal? I don't really know how to define a goal. I think one of the things that we would have to do is bring someone in that is a professional in fundraising to talk about, on a project the size that we're talking about, what would be a realistic goal. And then what if the goal is not met? What does that mean for the project? How long would the campaign last? Would we do it for 30 days, 90 days, 6 months? What would be the definition of the time frame? And then how would you determine success? Would you feel happy if you reach 70% of your goal, 80%? Those are questions that, I'm not a professional fundraiser. I don't think we have anybody on staff that has that expertise as far as fundraising. Generally, in capital campaigns, large contributions from a small number of donors make up about half of the total fundraising goal. And Carol found this chart from Animal Shelter Fundraising, which is a consultant that has sent us information. They list a similar chart that shows, if you're looking at a campaign, a $2 million campaign, you may have a couple of large donors, 150,000, 100,000, 50,000, 25,000. There may be some in that category, and I think we know in the community that there may be some that would step up with large donations. But most of your contributions are going to be in the smaller amounts, the $500 or $1,000 amounts, or even smaller than that. In looking at a timeline for fundraising, if the board feels that they're ready to move forward with this, we would like to draft and issue an RFP for a consultant to help us evaluate the fundraising aspect of it in late September, early October, evaluate the proposals and award a bid to a consultant around the December time frame, and then spend the first part of 2014 organizing, planning the campaign to get that rolling forward. The proposal phase in terms of construction, with a conceptual design and building study already completed, which we already have, if the board decided to go this route, a PPEA, which is the Public-Private Education Facilities and Infrastructure Act, a PPEA type proposal could be an option. The advantages of using a PPEA for a project like this is it would provide flexibility through the proposal process for design, construction, and financing. It actually allows you to put everything together. PPEA, if you recall, is what was used for the two high schools, for the construction of the two high schools and the middle school renovation. Proposals afford the option to evaluate proposed modifications to the conceptual design. It does give you flexibility. Guidelines allowing these types of proposals would need to be adopted if the board wanted to pursue a PPEA type approach. One of the things we would have to do is adopt guidelines for how those proposals would be developed and evaluated. And then funds would need to be appropriated in total for the project before an award could be made. We talked about that earlier. Under that scenario, we could adopt guidelines for PPEA and draft and issue an RFP for the shelter in early October. We could have the RFP issued and open for 30 to 45 days. That would put us in a position in January of 2014 to evaluate the proposals, score the proposals, have presentations and award a contract, and then by March of 2014 determine the total amount that would need to be set aside to make the award.
Sorry, Craig, can I just pause you back on that slide?
Sure.
So we have that up in front. With a traditional design bid build process, how does that timeline change?
It doesn't change a lot, well, if you go with the existing plan that's in place. The timeline would probably be somewhat similar in that you've already got a plan. We just need to, as I call it, dust it off and get it ready to roll it out. The time frame from January to March would be condensed somewhat, because if you put the bid out on the street, you may be actually able to award it before a March timeline.
Craig, can I interrupt just a minute? You'd have to hire an architect first, and so you'd have to go through that time period, which would take 38 to 60 days.
For PPEA?
No, for regular construction. Even though you have a concept plan, you don't have any design
drawings.
So you got to hire an architect who could then design based on what you have, or you can hire the people who did it. Either way, but then they got to produce construction documents, and then you got to, once those documents are done, or to a point where they can bid on it, they put that out, and that's another 30 to 60 days. So you're talking about 120, 180 days before you get a contractor on board to actually construct what's designed.
That is true. We do not have the final. We have a conceptual design, but we don't have documents that are ready to go out to bid. That's true.
Just have a concept.
Right.
So
But this,
back a bit.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
this is not an emergency type thing that it has to be built and open for school such as we
No,
had.
it's not.
So,
It's not.
you know, if it's a month or 2 months or 3 months, if we can save $1 million or something.
Absolutely.
You know, and we're not gonna know whether we can save until we put it out.
That's very true.
And, you know, if we go back to the schools that were built, the 2 schools that were built, design, build, how much we get back? $25 million, somewhere along there for the 2 of them? Same time period, we put them out on PPEA at twice the money, 3 times the money, and how much we get back? Goose eggs? I think we can stand, you know.
Well, and please understand, I'm presenting options. I'm not making a recommendation one way or the other, because I know that I know from talking with board members, there's several board members that feel very strongly that we're ready to move with what's in front of us. There's others that feel we need to back up and take another look. So what I'm trying to do is just illustrate timelines and options. And this is the key slide that we need to talk about. Next steps. Would love to have direction from this group regarding moving forward with the current plans or the development of new plans by our next meeting. In any case, I think it would be good to draft and issue an RFP for a fundraising consultant by October the 1st to begin that process, because from what I've heard is we wanted that to be a component no matter what we do. If the board decides to move forward with the current plans, you could adopt, if you wanted to move on a PPEA approach, you could adopt guidelines, issue an RFP for a shelter facility by October 21st, identify current funding sources available for the project and appropriate funding by November 25th if we wanted to move forward, and the contract for a new facility could be awarded in March of 2014, assuming use of the current plans. That's just a timetable for an example. The first 2 items we definitely need to move forward on, and that is direction from the board on how you want us to proceed, and I would strongly recommend that we move forward with talking about getting a fundraising partner on board to help us with this. That's really it for the presentation, I guess. As I said, the issues to be addressed from the board: do we move forward with the current design or not? Do you want us to begin exploration of what the impact would be on a county garage operation? And then what are your thoughts on the impact of capital fundraising on the timeline? So with that, I will step aside and let you.
Board members?
I have one question, Craig, and perhaps I haven't been involved as much, but the current plan and the everything that's designed, the $3.5 million potentially, will that fit all on the property that we own, or will we still have to acquire additional property?
If the garage is moved, it will fit.
Okay. No additional property would need to be required.
That's my understanding, is that?
Yes, when we initially looked at it, it was situated on there with the garage facility moved. Now, the question that we have not asked anyone is how much space would be available, and is there a way to fit the facility there and leave the garage standing? I don't think there's enough space, but I don't know. We've not had a detailed study looking at whether or not there would be the capacity to, say, reduce the parking or combine some parking or in some ways fit it on just the property we have. What we did through the building study and what they looked at was that in order to accommodate that with the appropriate level of parking, you would need to take the facility where the current garage is down, move that and use that to allow enough space for parking and the runs in the back of the building. The design itself has more than just the building. It has a design around the back for the runs for the animals.
And at one point in time, I saw a set of plans that would, I guess it's Miss Falkingham's property, that it looked like that one of the plans called for the acquisition of that property, but that's not what you're proposing at this point in time.
I'm not.
We're not proposing anything, but the plan that we're talking about would either move the garage or fit it all on that piece of property. That's what we're talking about.
Right. If the board's desire was to leave the garage intact in its current location, my gut feeling is you would have to acquire some additional property to make that work, just from what I've seen. I'm not an architect, don't pretend to be, or an engineer, don't pretend to be one, but I think in order to build what's currently designed with the runs and everything else, you've got to have that space where the garage is now.
Question. We bought land right back here.
We did.
For that very purpose of putting a garage. And we're also talking about the possibility of farming out our garage work altogether. Now, is there any reason that we couldn't take this as an opportunity to try out whether we wanted a garage or whether we wanted it to be farmed out? It seems like that would be a real good time to bring it forward, whether it would be to come back here and get in a garage or whether it would be to farm it out. So it's
well, and that's one of the questions that I have would like some direction on, because I do think it would be an opportune time to study that. You may decide that you want to try a pilot project for a year or so, or to farm out the garage operations, and then we can evaluate it. We have 2 employees in the garage operation now, and I would assure you that in all likelihood those 2 employees would be retained. At least one of them would be retained in another jurisdiction where some of the garage operations were farmed out. We still had an on-call mechanic that was like a first responder to help take care of vehicle issues and whatnot. In all likelihood, there would not be any loss of jobs. We're only talking about 2 positions.
Yeah. And the truth of the matter, we've got space back here to handle 1 or 2 mechanics, I would think.
We can.
Already a building there that has been used kind of for that type thing before.
Ms. Perkins?
No more talks with the school system about combining this?
We've talked about combining. The issue that the schools bring up when we talk about combining the garage is their capacity too. In other words, if we were to combine, the discussion has been we'd probably need a new facility for both of us. What they tell us when we talk about combining facilities is they've got all they can handle in their current garage.
Okay.
Combining could mean we move their garage to a facility we would build for the county garage also,
Could,
which would give us that property to free up also.
Right.
absolutely could. I mean, if we determine that we need to maintain a garage operations, we could certainly work with the schools to develop a combined facility.
Oh,
And
gosh, excuse me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. No, that sent it right out of my brain. Go ahead, I'll think about it.
So if we look at privatizing, so we still have the cost of privatizing, paying someone else to be our mechanic for us, and then we're retaining 2 additional employees. Any ballpark of what those employees make?
No, and that's why I said we've kind of sorted through some things in our head, but I don't have the first number on paper to be able to say conclusively that this will or will not be a money saver. So
that's what I guess I can't fathom how it would be a money saver if we're retaining the 2 employees. And I understand not wanting to lay people off. They've got families and they need jobs. I get that. But then at the same time, then we turn around and privatizing it, we've just increased our costs.
Well, and part of that, and again, that would be part of a study that we would look at it. Those 2 mechanics that we currently have, let me rephrase that, the 2 employees we currently have assigned to the garage aren't exclusively both 40-hour-a-week garage. They do a lot of support work for general services, especially in solid waste and whatnot. So some of their time's going in other places already. So it's not like if we eliminate the garage, we're eliminating 80 hours a week of work for 2 people. So.
I know the question I want to ask. Do we have any concept of what it would cost to move the garage to a new facility back here?
No, ma'am. Depends on what we would desire to build. And that's why I think the first thing we should evaluate is it cost effective for the county to maintain a garage operations? If the answer to that is yes, then we need to evaluate, should we build something new? If the answer to that is no, then I don't know why we'd contemplate building a new garage anyway.
Well, is it cost effective now to have a garage? I don't you have to answer that one. I mean, you're not changing anything.
Well, you're saying it's only cost effective if we go to new. I thought that one of these buildings back here would suffice for.
No, sir.
It won't.
No, sir. Those buildings are not. Matter of fact, 2 of those buildings are probably not habitable at all.
Yeah, the first one on the right is not.
That's the one we're using right now for landscaping and maintenance operations. But I do not know the answer if that could be structurally modified to make a garage out of. But I can tell you when that property was purchased, it was right after I came, and none of those buildings are structurally sound for the long haul for that kind of operation without some investment.
Yeah.
And the current garage we have isn't either.
You can have plenty of space there to build something.
But there's plenty of space, and my understanding is that's why the county purchased that property to start with, was with a long-term plan of if the garage was ever relocated to put the garage there. And I'd also been told that PSA, other operations would all consolidate back on that site at some point.
And that, a garage is probably one of the least expensive things there is to build. It's just a big open.
That's true, yeah. Concrete floor, metal sides, and a lift or 2.
And Ms. Perkins was.
I was just saying, Matt has a question, but again, you didn't answer my question. Is it cost effective now?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that
Why would we go to these 2 suggestions, Craig? If it's cost effective now.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. Should we consider other options as part of this study? To my knowledge, in the 4 years I've been here, we've never done a study of the garage operations to determine whether it is truly effective or not. It's just been part of the budget every year.
Yeah, just a quick question. So, the option that we're discussing right now, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to keep a garage on top of a new animal control facility. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. But the way that it would be situated on the site, if we didn't need to acquire any extra land, does that option take into consideration the continuous operation of the existing animal shelter? Or would that operation need to be stopped while construction is occurring on the new facility, the way it's situated?
I do not know the answer to that, but I can tell you I don't know how we could stop the operation of the current facility till we have the new facility built. I believe in one of the drawings I've seen of the conceptual design of the new facility, the existing facility kind of sets off to the side, so it could continue to be used and maintained while the new facility is built.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to be. Okay, thank you.
Was there any discussion of that back when that study was done about continuing to operate the existing facility if a new facility?
I think the idea was it would continue to operate in that the new construction would be farther to the front, that it would not impact that operation.
There's one.
Anybody else?
Hey, one quick question. How many vehicles do the two mechanics maintain for the county? You do know roughly?
The county has a total fleet of about 150, isn't that right?
I think.
It's about 150. Some of those are the larger pieces of equipment that we do a few things to, but we still have to outsource. The majority of those are sheriff's vehicles. Vast majority are sheriff's vehicles.
They don't do anything for fire and rescue or anything like that?
Sorry, they do occasionally do some more oil changes, things of that sort, but they don't do the heavy equipment work.
The extent of the work that the garage does is basically oil changes and tires?
Yes, sir. It's basic maintenance.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else before I jump in?
Well,
we're going to go step by step through the presentation to
that's
talk about, and I guess
I want to know.
Or you can pick the easier ones and the harder ones.
Well, that's what I was thinking that we would talk about, and that's why my question to you is are we stopping here at this slide almost, and then move on to some other discussions?
Yeah, because we've got, as I see it, like I said, 3 issues: current design or work on something else. Talk about the impact on the garage, which I think I'm looking for direction there to study it and bring some information back or not. That's why I wasn't trying to be evasive. I honestly don't know. And then how do you want to address the fundraising aspect of it? Those are the 3 pieces that.
When you're saying study, are we saying hiring somebody? Or
For the garage?
Yes.
No, us.
Okay. All right.
Us. Yes, I'd like, no.
I was just wondering, and like I said, so at this point in time also, you had looked at several different facilities that have been built. Pulaski built one within the last few years, so it was cost about $1 million. I know Giles built one. Obviously, their populations are much smaller than ours. And do you know roughly about the square foot of those? And I know one of the things that we pointed out is Giles built theirs in a very rural area, and their adoption rates have not been as high as that they wanted them to be.
Right. And I don't know the answer to that. I know one of the key things that drives up the cost of this proposed facility, if you want to say drives it up, is it's not all simply to house animals. It's to provide office space for the animal control staff. It's to provide office space for the volunteers and others that are going to be working there. And another critical component of the facilities is to provide educational space. And one of the reasons that I want to emphasize, I think that's very important, is in talking to some of the folks at Virginia Tech, there's hopefully going to be some opportunities to partner with them on various aspects of this. And one of the things that was shared with me is it would be wonderful to have a facility where some of the vet students could actually come over, have education courses there, and actually work in a shelter type facility as part of their training. So, it's a comprehensive, it's not just it's like I've said, it's not just a dog pound or a cat pound. It's a complete educational office shelter facility.
Well, can I have a thought? Just and maybe taking the easiest question first, about the garage. I mean, I'm getting the sense, and I personally would like just some more information about the cost effectiveness of that facility, whether it needs to be maintained, what would be the cost of privatization, what would be the cost of moving it to another facility. I mean, again, personally, I can't see it sitting right next to a brand new animal shelter. We have the opportunity to do something very nice there, and tie it in with the Frog Pond and the park right there and stuff like that, and then having a garage smack in the middle of that doesn't make sense to me. So I mean, at least just some more information from staff for next meeting, I think would be very useful for me at least.
I agree with Matt as far as that goes. I feel like the garage is something that if we didn't have to have it there, and if we could farm it out, we'll have to get RFPs, I guess, and but other counties do that, and use the property we have. I don't really want to acquire any more property if we don't have to. And the garage that we have isn't going to last very long as a structure anyway. I mean, it's deteriorating. It's past its life. So do we put another $300,000 or $400,000 in that building, to upgrade it, or do we just move it if we need to move it or farm it out?
I think we probably can make that decision pretty much now. I don't think there's anybody here that thinks we should keep the garage over there in space that we're going to put the plant.
Okay, so you've got that answer. Let's look at the garage situation.
And now the second piece is I do think, I do want us to be able to evaluate it and bring it back. One question that somebody may be sitting there thinking is, well, why haven't you done that sooner? As I mentioned earlier, one of the things with the garage operations is the 2 employees in the garage serve a lot of other purposes besides 40-hour-a-week mechanics. So it's not been a critical issue from a budgetary standpoint because those employees, their time is being used in other places already. I think it's now time to ask, though, does it really make sense for us to have a garage operation, or should we outsource it? A lot of communities have. We may find after we do a study that it doesn't make sense, that we're saving X dollars a year by doing it in-house. But before I invested staff time in that, I wanted the okay to move forward with that. So
I think that's a good place to invest staff time.
Yeah, if they're just doing all changes and stuff like that, you're not going to come out. I mean, I can tell you, I've been around the car business a long time, and there's no way out from that with 2 people doing all changes. It don't happen.
And I think it's good too that they have other skills instead of being mechanics. And then hopefully they could be worked into some of the other departments and maybe fill in if somebody retires or something like that, so you don't just don't have to lay them off, so to speak.
No, you've been awful quiet.
Well, you know what direction I'm going in. I agree with the garage. I don't think it should be there. I'm ready to, I'm just going to state real directly what, thinking about the questions. Number one, I don't want to delay. We've delayed this forever. So what I would like to do is proceed with the current plan that we've had sitting there on the shelf. It's a good plan. We're sitting here right next to Virginia Tech with the medical school. We have all the volunteers in place, and I think we should use our current plan. Now, I'm not as sure as to how to go about, sending out private, public, or whatever, but I support the current plan. I would like to see what kind of funding is available from the county. What kind of funding, if there is additional funding that we can put into it. I would also like to see somebody hired that could get us together on a fundraising campaign as part of it, because I think people would be excited to be invested in it, because there are so many people that I think would be supportive out there. But I feel like we need to advance. So when I look at that timeline and I see maybe something could happen as far as March 2014, 2014 and trying to get something done. I know that it's going to be here before we know it, but still to me, it seems so far away. And I guess my passion is that, to me, this is just so way overdue that we just need to move it. And, you know, if you don't use the plan that we took all the time and all the patient and all the staff time to work with these people and develop, then it looks like we're spending another year. I mean, we've all been there. Do we really have another year before the whole thing falls in? Do we really have another year before the state walks in on one of their little visits Wednesday and says, whoa, what in the world are you doing here? It's an embarrassment. It's truly an embarrassment, and it's inhumane to the dogs. And it's inhumane to the people that we have over there.
Absolutely.
And so my passion is, let's move it forward, please. I'm going to shut up because I know everybody else wants to talk.
Ms. Perkins.
I agree. I do want to move forward. I have people who volunteer there. They come all the time. I talk to them, and they're constantly saying, this facility is truly not a place to take dogs or animals of any kind. You talk about it being inhumane. It's inhumane to the animals, they believe, most of the volunteers. And secondly, I don't know how you get volunteers to go there, because they love the animals so, and they take care of them, and without the volunteers, I don't know what would happen to the animals we have there. So as far as I'm concerned, I know we don't have full drawing plans. We just have a concept. Okay, so with a concept plan, it's going to take a while to flush it out. It's going to take several months to have some firm do that.
To finalize the plans.
Yeah, to finalize those plans. But I agree that there should not be a garage in the middle of where we want to have these animals. And I appreciate what the one young lady said to us about a dog park or some other place, how to go about that whole thing. And we do need somebody to help us with fundraising. I think that's always important. Or if anybody on our staff's been involved in fundraising, they might be able to really just do the basics themselves. I don't know, but I agree. When you look at the timeline, I know how long it takes to do a set of plans and to get them out, to find someone who will do, or whoever is responsible for doing that. And I also know that to wait a year before you even get anything going is a really hard thing to visualize, especially for the facility we now have. I guess we just kind of let it go. And, now when push comes to shove, what do? You have to, go ahead and fish or cut bait. So I think we ought to go ahead and move with that particular shelter, and let's get going.
Well, and if I can just add, the main reason that I feel it's important to keep this before the board and to get some direction is, and Ms. Biggs hit on it, there's two primary concerns. One, I am very concerned about us being able to continue to maintain certification from the state to operate what we have. I really am. We've been given notices before. Our response to those notices is we are working on a plan, but the state's only going to let us do that for so long.
Right.
The other issue that is just as important to me are the folks that are sitting right back here. These folks save us a tremendous amount of money.
Absolutely.
And when we open a new facility, we are going to have some paid staff. There's no way we can operate it totally with volunteers. But if this group decides they've had enough, just like we talked about the volunteer fire and rescue folks, if the volunteer animal folks decide they've had enough, then we're going to be spending a lot of money
on help.
Right.
You have something?
Yeah, I'd like to say a word or two. I mean, we've been real critical of the animal shelter, but we as a board, it might not be this board, but some previous boards, need to take some responsibility for that, because it was not a high priority on previous boards' list.
Amen.
And I mean, so we as a board, we talk about how bad it is, this, that, and that, but the buck stops right up here. And if it had been a priority for the previous boards to put some money aside to do some planning and stuff, we would already have a new shelter over there. You know, it's the same thing when it came to schools. Let the schools fall down, and then when they fall down, let's do something about it. But this approach is sort of like playing catch up. It's something that should have been done 10 or 12 years ago. And I'm all for moving forward, but I think it's some hiccups in there with the design for the plan, the architectural work, and so forth, the RFPs, and so it might not exactly be March 14th, but I'd like to see that the staff have enough time to where things are done right. I mean, if it's April instead of March, as long as it's done right, and they have time to do the things that they need to do to get the RFPs back and to do A, B, C, and D, and not rush it where it's halfway done just to meet this board's expectations. If you need a little bit more time, come to this board and says, we didn't get back what we wanted to get back. We're gonna need another couple of weeks or another month for those people to respond. And so we want you to come back, but we want it done correctly, and we want something that we as a county can be proud of.
I agree with you.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the only thing that I see halted me from voting for this complete package here is I will not vote for a PPEA. I called that when the schools did it. They told me how much money they was going to be getting back. Well, they didn't get nothing.
I think they said a possibility that they would be. They didn't say they would be getting it back. It was a possibility.
They offered to bet me there at one time. So anyway.
Yeah, and again, that is not a recommendation. That is an approach that if the board decides, then we won't do that.
I think we need to take the time to get our designs in order and put it out to design bid build. Then you can go to the PPA and if you want to check up on yourself, but you know, you've got them both there. Let's use what we know has worked in the past in order to do what is right in the future.
Well, and the thing with a PPEA or design build, as it used to be called, is you can modify your plans as you go along. We already have a pretty good concept plan that if the majority feels is something, we can take that concept plan that we have and get the final design from that, and then we can price it out. So,
A few things. One, when we set aside, and I didn't vote to set aside $1 million, but when it was set aside, there was saying, hey, money will follow. That was a year ago. Now, these folks I've heard raised about $1,400, but that's the first money I've heard of matching that $1 million that we set aside. I haven't heard about any other money following. It's all well and good to look at saying, hey, we're going to build this wonderful animal shelter, but you got to be able to pay for it. And are we going to deplete our reserves to be able to do that when we know we have stormwater management coming? We know that we need or we're going to need a new rescue facility out at Roanoke. We have some demands that we're going to have meeting and coming about. And we have $1 million set aside. And one of the things I would like to at least explore is the possibility of moving forward with the shelter quickly, going ahead, but then doing it and designing it so it can have additions to it. So when we do have additional reserves to be able to meet those needs, you build what you can now and try to be able to meet and get out of the system that everybody's saying the state is going to close it down or that's a possibility. Get them out of having the floods that we've seen the pictures of. and address some of those concerns. But we have a lot of concerns, and we have had, and I may be wrong, 6 out of 7 years, last 7 years, we've had tax increases. We've had the record tax increases 2 years ago. So are we looking at another tax increase to address storm water, to address this animal shelter, and those type of things? And so in my mind, I want to be able to address the situation, but perhaps rather than hiring a consultant, we work with the folks who have been raising money at the animal shelter for years and coordinate with them. Rather than spend that money, maybe we can coordinate with them and hopefully and work with that before we spend money on a consultant. So I guess that, because that money for a consultant could go towards building that building. And so that's where I'm at. Maybe I'm in the minority. I understand that. Am I okay with moving it? I understand that building has been there for a long time. I remember being a kid going out to see my Uncle Ira at that building, and I'm no longer a kid and haven't been for a long time. So I understand that building is probably used up its lifespan just about. Do we need a county garage? I'm willing to talk about that, but at the same time, I also want to know, is this going to be a hidden cost that's going to be affecting us $100,000 per year because we're keeping 2 additional employees and we're doing a privatization? So those are some of the questions that I would like to address in the next couple of meetings. And at the same time, I'm willing to say, let's start turning dirt right away. Let's go with what, and I'm a big believer exactly with what Gary said. I remember you saying those things when I was coming to the meetings, when they were talking about the schools, and you said, hey, listen, do it this way. And they said, I remember that whole conversation, and I remember that we have had money coming back from some of the new school facilities. And if I remember right, this is coming back at $63 million, whatever, the Blacksburg High School. There's no money coming back that I'm aware of. So, and with that, I'll be quiet.
Mr. Brown.
I'll jump in and say a couple quick things. One, I believe those people have jobs back there that they have to work. And I don't think they can raise the money that a professional can raise. And even if they come in and work, a percentage of what they raise can pay their funds and the rest of it can go toward. So I don't think it would be any direct cost to the county if you work it right. There's a lot of people and they have tactics and contacts and proven methods to raise money, where if the people sitting in the back didn't have jobs, they didn't have families, they didn't have things to take care of, but they don't have the expertise to raise the money that needs to be raised to address the needs of this shelter. And I want to hit on a couple things that you were talking about, county needs. The detention home needs to be, it needs some upgrading to it. We've been studying and looking at that for I don't know how long. And you said the rescue squad in Roanoke, Blacksburg Rescue Squad, I'm sure they're going to ask us for some money. They're trying to build a new one out there. They're going to ask the county for some money. And you got stormwater management. You have the park and ride situation that we're dealing with. And the last meeting with the school board, they said they need two additional $1 million per year just for maintenance. And so there's a lot of things on the plate that we're looking at, but it shouldn't delay proceeding on with the animal shelter. We got these things to keep in mind. So we need that professional person to come in, a consultant to come in and help raise money to help us with these other projects down the road, not to go into reserves and just pay cash for the building. I think that would be cutting your nose off to cut your face. I mean, cutting your nose off to spite your face. But if some money out there that can be raised and so forth, we need to go that route.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have $1 million set aside.
Right.
Has it earned any interest sitting there?
In the current environment, probably about $12.
Okay, I just want to be sure, but maybe.
It is earning some interest.
Right.
I couldn't tell you how much. But
Then, secondly, why don't we use that money now to draw up the plans? I mean, a set of drawings.
Well, absolutely. If the board's instruction is to move forward, to move forward, you
Yeah.
have to have funding, and it would come from
Right.
part of that million to
And
keep it moving forward.
It's not going to cost $1 million
No, no,
to
no,
get
no,
the
no.
set of plans. So why don't we, as I said, why don't we use some of that money that we have, and that way we can move forward with at least the plans. And then we can continue to, at the same time that we are moving forward with getting the plans done, that's where you begin to talk with the architects and other people to figure out how much it's going to cost, or where does the cutting come to stick with $3 million.
Right.
There's a lot that goes on, but at the same time, we could be doing some fundraising while those plans are being finalized. And so you've got the set of plans going, you have some fundraising going, and it seems like to me that that's a win-win. Right? That then, if we've got to tear down a garage, at the same time as you're doing those two things, you can look at the privatization. I don't know whether whoever wants to give us a bid and whoever we take is going to cost $20 to change oil on every sheriff's car. So, those kinds of things are, all three of those things can be done at one time. And I know you got hundreds of other things, but somehow or other we can do it. And then there will still be some money left over. I would say a lot of money left over from that original $1 million we put aside.
There should be some. And I want to address the fundraising piece again, too, because I've heard some suggestions. And yes, if we had staff that all they had to do for a week or two or three was work on a fundraising campaign, we could probably do it. We don't have that time. And honestly, I don't think, unless Carol or Marty knows somebody that I don't know in the organization, we don't have the expertise to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what Supervisor Brown said, in my past experience when I worked with Gardner Webb on a campaign at one point, they bring in a consultant, and they are paid a portion of what they raise. Now, in government, I think you have to have a defined contract. I don't think it can work that way, but those guys know that their income is based on how well they do. If we're talking about a campaign of at least several $100,000, which I think would be a minimum realistic goal for here, we need that support. I don't think that would cost, I know it wouldn't cost, back when I did it years ago, I think it was 8% of whatever was raised went to the fundraiser. But I just think, again, from a time standpoint and from an efficiency standpoint, if you want to maximize your value from a fundraising campaign, you need some outside help to help you do that.
I think I mentioned that I would be willing to help with that, but at the same time, we have got some of the very best folks that I know of that we could possibly, better than most people that we can possibly hire, that would be willing to give us some tips, I believe, on how to do this, that, and the other, and exactly what to do. And it would not hurt us at all if we, in my opinion, if we went ahead and started that and seeing, maybe we don't get but $500,000 up front. We don't have to pay nothing out of that. Why not go for that? And because I think everybody here knows somebody is pretty doggone good at it.
Well, we've already had a couple of conversations with some folks. Let me tell you the downside. I totally agree. The downside of that is if you're trying to bring in a fundraiser to raise funds, if you knock that chunk out to start. Now, you're right, you don't have to pay the fundraiser because you've done it yourself, but then the fundraiser would say, well, I'm looking at a pool of this, and so I don't know.
But it's so much easier to get money if you can tell them 100% of what you're giving is going to be put towards it.
That's true. That's always true.
Instead of counting off 8 or 10% of it.
Okay.
Mary has.
Well, I think what you're looking at is like the consultant is coordinator. It's not that this person is going to go out and do it all by his or herself, but that person can coordinate all these other people. Like I personally talked to someone that I know has raised a lot of money, particularly in Mr. Creed's district, and that person right now has another full-time job. Now, that person can help us, but that person can't devote his full time to doing this. So what I see the consultant as is just like if you're running a campaign, a political campaign, you have your campaign consultant come in. The campaign consultant isn't going around everywhere going, well, we're going to have this fundraiser here and here, and I'm going to organize the whole thing. The campaign manager, which would be the same type thing. It's the person out there helping helping the other people decide on what events might work in this community. Okay, now let's go about how we organize them, and then that work is farmed out. It takes a lot of people, but you need someone to coordinate the whole thing, and that's what I sort of see this person doing. And I think there are people out there, and maybe we get someone that really specializes in, because Gary's had some great ideas about how to do some fundraising for the animal shelter. And then as we've gone along, we've heard from different people saying, well, why don't you do this or that? So there are ideas out there. We just need someone to sort of be in charge of pulling it together.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. I think we have the problem settled as far as the garage, investigating that.
That one's answered pretty clear.
I agree with a couple other folks at the table. We do not need to do a PPEA. Okay, design, bid, build.
I'll erase that from everything we've talked about.
Okay. The fundraiser, I got to disagree with Gary a little bit on it, though I don't totally, but I think you need to have a professional fundraiser when you're talking about trying to raise $1 million and a half. And as you said, if you can tell them there's all the money goes towards the shelter, I don't know how much that'll limit how much we can do. If you can have a professional fundraiser, I know a couple myself. One of them's a neighbor of mine down the road, and if they're working on some sort of commission basis, as you said, it's not going to cost you. Okay, so that's just my personal feeling on that. The structure itself, I think one of the bigger costs, and I've discussed this with a couple of people, is the infrastructure of the building. Okay, not the shell. All right, and I look at a couple of buildings that are really steel frame buildings that are beautiful. One's a beautiful church over in Roanoke. And I think you can cut down your construction cost if you do something like that. Another beautiful building that most people in this room have probably seen going by is the Harley-Davidson building. That is a steel building. It can be added on to very easily. The church in Roanoke can be added on to very easily. So I don't mind the idea of phasing it in, okay? I'm not saying I wouldn't vote for it otherwise, but the biggest cost, the most important cost, is going to be the infrastructure of the building. So I would like to leave it up to our architects to tell us, well, with a steel frame building with a good facade, we're not a retail organization, okay?
Well, and that, if we move forward with the current design and taking it to the architects for final, they may very well be able to say, you can do this facade or this facade or this facade. Here's the pros and cons, and here's the cost. I
like to have that as an option if we go forward.
I don't like the metal. I don't like the idea. I'm sorry, disagree with you. I don't like the idea of a metal building at all.
Well, that's why we could
because
have
I
options.
think there are other options, and today most people are building with the. We used to call it stucco, but my husband has another name for it.
Tilt-up concrete, drive it.
There's a lot of different things there that you can do. So I think that some metal buildings are going to last forever, but others aren't, and they're not very, I don't know. I just am against that. But I do know that in working with the architects, what you want to ask them to do is to give you, or the design build people, to ask them to give you the alternatives and how much
That's
money
basically what
each
I'm asking
costs.
for.
Yeah.
Give them the alternative of looking at
But
that.
I don't like the whole idea of a metal building. I don't think I could support that at all.
All right.
I would just like to say one thing. I'm not opposed if we could do it on a commission basis of hiring a fundraiser and doing it that way, if that's legal. I did, for some reason I didn't, and that's the reason I guess I was looking at the use of community resources, because what I was concerned about is, let's say we spend $80,000 on a fundraiser and we only raise $60,000. Then I've got to look at my district and my folks and say, well, I just wasted 20 grand of your money.
I would think, well, I would not think, I would know that if we go out soliciting for any type of fundraiser professional, it will be based on some return. We wouldn't pay 80 to get 60. We pay 80 to get a million, but
that's when I was hearing consultant, I guess
Right.
that I'm hearing that, hey, we go hire somebody and they tell us a lot of good ideas and then they say, go do it.
No, this person's a doer, not a talker.
I understand. And with that, and I would be in favor of someone hiring a professional to assist and work with the folks who are volunteering, and exactly what you're saying, saving the county probably $1 million a year, the hours.
Them folks, these folks back here are not the ones that's going to be doing fundraising.
Well,
Your fundraising comes from sitting down and having the brainstorms with him and putting things in the mail to these people, or out going and sitting down and talking to them and getting money. You don't get it.
I understand, but they'll be talking with us. But one of the things, if you remember from our last meeting, we had a group and they said, "Hey, listen, we're talking about setting up that charitable foundation. If you remember, they were here." And so that's why I'm saying, if we have people who, and they were here at our last meeting, I shouldn't have pointed at you folks because I don't know that y'all were here at the last meeting. But if you remember, they came and they talked about the volunteerism that they were doing there, and that they did have something and they were in place. And I guess my point of view is, if we got somebody who's out there and who's willing to work hard and do the work, and they have probably connections, like the citizen that you're talking about and Mary's talking about, who was very involved with animals, making those connections, they're going to be able to do those things. And I'm perfectly willing to say, hey, listen, we've got the Craig Meadows wing, and Craig's going to donate $100,000 to it. So I'm happy to name it for Craig and those, when you were talking about those.
We can even name it the Craig Meadows Animal Shelter,
Chris
right?
Cutwing.
No, I'm paying for
Chris
I'm paying Virginia Tech tuition, and those professors are
See,
expensive.
I think bigger than you do on this. I think $500,000 to make the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Well, hey.
Well, something a fundraiser can do, from some of my discussion I've had, is they'll go after foundations like Purina or Michael Vick, and this is what they do. Well, Michael Vick's got a foundation.
I know.
He does have a foundation.
I know he does.
And
I know he does.
so I don't know that we can approach them ourselves.
Well,
Okay.
That's why staff feels we need professional help on that.
That's right.
That's right.
And they can come up with a lot of money.
Yes, sir. And they may even know some resources that we're not even thinking of.
Yeah.
Who is this?
Just a professional fundraiser that works with animal shelter
They
facilities.
do it every day, so they should be good at it.
Well, I just have a question. I want to get back to, is there consensus to take what we have as far as the concept plan and go out with that as far as getting...
Firming it up.
Yeah, like I heard 3 people that support the concept that we have, not this like, well, we'll build part of it and add to it later. I'm talking about build what we need. Because I sort of know how we're going to build it and add later goes. That was supposed to be Kip's Elementary Falling Branch Elementary, Auburn Elementary. I heard that story and nothing happened. So what I'm saying is, we've got this concept plan. We know what we need for now and for in the future. So is there consensus among the board? Is there enough consensus for that at least to go forward?
Well, that would answer the first question.
We're okay? We got consensus.
Okay.
Okay.
I was just going to offer, if I could, you asked 3 questions. And I was going to offer my personal answer to those 3 questions is move the garage, which we already talked about. We need to deal with a professional fundraiser, at least to do an RFP for that, and go forward with the current plan. And I'd also like to add that I'm also against any PPEA.
I forget you ever heard that.
Okay.
Okay, so we have consensus that...
Okay, we have consensus on that.
I agree with everything Matt said. I agree.
Okay.
I guess until I know how we're going to pay for it.
Well, and again,
that's where I'm at. And I guess for me to say, hey, listen, I'm in favor of it, I want to know how I'm going to pay for it.
And I was going to close. I was going to close with that. This is not all going to be done in a vacuum. I'm not going to say thank you and we're going to go running off and come back in 6 months and say, hey, look, here we go. We'll have discussions with the board about the steps. One of the things as we secure an architect to finalize the plans is we'll talk to them about value engineering. What things could we do to save money on this facility? Because money is an issue. You know, we want to build it. We want to build it for the long term, but we also want to identify if there are ways that make sense to save money. We're going to do that. Am I forgetting to ask anything, or does that pretty well cover?
I think you've asked everything.
Can we get 2 or 3 fundraisers that, people that do that, 2 or 3 of them that we can interview to see?
If that's something the board wants to do.
Yeah,
We've already been contacted by folks. Word has gotten out that we're trying to get something going. And so we've already been contacted by folks that have said, hey, if you need some help, let us know. So there may be some folks we can talk to. Yes, sir.
Well, perhaps, if I could make a suggestion, perhaps if we do put an RFP, staff could bring us suggestions, like finalists, if you will. And then we could, that way we don't have to go through, because I don't want to micromanage this. I want staff to be able to deal with this. And then allow us to you know, as we should, make the final decision on that.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to have their proven resume and their references.
So one of them that sent an email, yes. Yes, they are. They're very much so. Folks, thank you so much. I know this took a while. I've been here 4 years, and I said this a month or so ago. This project is very important to me simply because as I've gotten more involved with it, I definitely have a love for animals. My kids have a love for animals. My daughter's bachelor's degrees in animal science. But just as importantly to me is, as we've talked about fire and rescue and the volunteers we have there, we have such a dedicated group of folks here, and to see the passion that they have, to have seen several times in the last several months the conditions that they're volunteering in, we can't keep putting this off. We got to do something.
That's right.
Well, I think you got to go ahead tonight.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is
OBMS.
low battery.
Oh, yes.
For Virginia Tech football.
A piece of land we can't.
Western Virginia Regional Industrial
No.
Facility.
Number 2.
Oh, Virginia Tech, I'm sorry.
And I can probably nip that one in the bud pretty quick.
Go ahead.
We have inquired about what requirements we would have as a county to use the old BMS as temporary parking for Virginia Tech football. We would have to go through a permit process through the town to do that. A lot of other requirements, but I finally, the town manager and I had been playing tag trying to catch each other. I finally talked to the town manager this afternoon and found out pretty much that you can't park that many cars on, the town has an ordinance against parking that many cars on grass, period. It has to be on an impervious surface. So it's a great idea. I think that if we had a year or two to work on it, we could make some progress. But at this point, I can't recommend under any circumstance spending additional staff time trying to make that work for this
I hope we don't have it
year.
in a year or two.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But
Is anybody parking on that place now?
No.
they're not parking on the grass.
But just the gravel.
The two impervious surfaces, the two parking lots belong to the town, so they can allow that if they wish.
Well, why don't we just, since nothing's going on there, why don't we just plow it up and put tar all over it?
They got as slick as old Sweet Willie.
I mean, we can put macadam all over the whole place and just go on and park people there.
At this point in time, to go through what we would need to go through to make that a
We won't make it
reality.
this season
We won't
anyway.
make it in time.
I'm just being facetious, but, you know, I think it's too much work and too much effort
Yeah.
and
For too little money.
It's a great
for too
idea.
little money.
It was a great idea. but-
Yes.
All right. Next is Western Virginia Regional Industrial Facility Authority. Boy, what a name.
I will introduce
Too many
this if it's something that is fraught with a lot of discussion and controversy. We may decide to put this one off. But briefly, several of us back earlier this year attended a meeting over in Roanoke County that was hosted by Roanoke County, and one of Chairman Mike Altizer's priorities for the Roanoke Valley was to establish an industrial development authority. Was to establish a working partnership, is a better way to phrase that, of the localities in the Roanoke Valley to allow them to participate together in future economic development projects and activities. And we in Montgomery County were specifically invited to be a part of that because, as our board has said, we wanted to participate more with the Roanoke Valley area, and the Roanoke Valley folks have said they'd like for us to be more active with their activities. This agreement creating the Western Virginia Regional Industrial Authority, as the county attorneys pointed out to me, basically is pretty much a restatement of the Virginia Code that allows for these type facilities to be set up. It is not specific. It is simply outlining a framework of cooperation, if you will, between the localities. It does not commit us to anything. It does not obligate us to anything. It simply says that we will be glad to be a part of the Regional Industrial Facility Authority, and that if any projects come up in the future, we may or may not participate. This would work exactly like the Virginia's first Regional Industrial Facility Authority. That's the umbrella organization. The specific project under Virginia's first is Commerce Park. Now, this is not a Commerce Park document. It is basically an agreement that says if there's two or more entities that later on want to participate in an economic development agreement, it allows that to take place. I've gone through it a couple of times. It's very, very non-committal, very non-specific. At this point, it would mainly be a gesture of goodwill that we are interested in participating with the folks in the Roanoke Valley in any future economic development projects that may come up, and that's.
Mr. Gabriel.
Just generally, I think moving closer to the Roanoke Valley, especially in economic development, I think is a good idea. That's something that I've been saying, and I think the majority of the board perhaps supports, but I don't want to speak for you guys. My question is about that kind of general language, because sometimes you try to be non-specific so that you can get yourself into trouble, and you end up with your non-specificity getting yourself into trouble. And so I'm wondering if that might be an issue here. So I don't know if that's a question for you or for Marty, but
my comment was it's general, but my comment was in a negative standpoint, saying I think it needs to be more specific. I don't understand what we're doing. I mean,
We're agreeing to agree.
They're going to use us as a head count to say
Yeah.
that we've got this, all these things are going to be done because we've got these members. Got all these members, although we might not agree, they're going to say we've got these members that are going to do.
The other, and I've talked about this with the other county administrators and the city manager in Roanoke, they just want to establish a framework, nothing more than a framework of ability to participate.
Right. Now, the other problem is the same framework is what we're doing to the west of us, and it's fraught with problems. Like, how do you share in the revenue? You know,
Well, how do you both go after the same people?
Yeah.
that's the other thing.
That's the same problem we have with the authority. The same thing we have with the Economic Development
That's
Authority.
right. I mean, that don't work.
And then the structure as far as your dues and if you want to leave, how do you get out of it if for some reason in the future you don't want to be a part of it? You know, does everyone have to vote that?
Once you are in, you cannot leave unless everybody
Well, see, there we
lets you
go.
out.
That's
And
the whole.
you don't have any debt.
And see, that's sort of like the structure that we have now with the others. I don't know.
It is. It is.
I don't know. I guess I'm sort of
That's what I'm saying.
I'm sort of shy just because of being involved in the other, but
I'm very shy.
it's not that I don't want to do things with Roanoke, but I just, having been involved in others since, what was it? 1999.
My commitment to the folks to the east was that I was, they have invited us to consider participating, and I said I will certainly have this on the agenda for our board to consider.
I really think that unless there's more there, we ought to just.
Is it to get us to agree to the intermodal? Is that what the whole thing's about?
But no, we don't have to agree to the intermodal.
But we'd
Like
be
I said,
in it.
How does one know?
But here's the thing, well, the participation, and I just look at it this way. You know, there may be a dance. Well, if we're not a member, we're not going to get invited to it.
Right.
And sometimes it's better to know what's going on out there and then make informed decisions. But if you aren't part of the game, you don't
get
know
no
about it.
information.
And so I'm the only thing that worries me about not going with it, because I don't want to pay any more fees and any more agreements and those things, and no more meetings for our staff to have to go to. But in the back of my mind, I keep thinking, I want to know. I want to make that decision. I want somebody to ask us, hey, listen, what do you think about this idea? And at least know about it in advance, other than finding out, hey, by the way, we're putting this down at Dixie Caverns. Good luck with y'all.
What do you want to know? You say you want to know, but what is it you want to know?
I don't. Here's the thing. When you're talking about their plans, and obviously maybe it's going to be an industrial park or the like, would we like to be a participant in that and maybe at least know about it and get invited? But if we're not part of this group, are we not going to get invited?
What are you getting invited to? The opening or
well, but here's the thing.
groundbreaking,
Or here's the thing. Let's say there's something controversial and they decide to put it on that end of the county, Roanoke, end of Roanoke County. It's not in ours. Well, maybe that's not something that we want. But the only way we find out about it is we read.
That the jail that nobody wanted down in Roanoke is right against Montgomery County.
I understand that, but it may be that at least we're a part of the process instead of just reading about it in the paper. And who knows? It may not. We may get outvoted. We are. Let's face it. We're out in the West, and we may be considered a poor stepchild. But I don't know if it doesn't bind us, and I don't know how much these people. But
He's just said it did.
He's just saying it doesn't bind us, except for we can't get out of it. But we don't have to. There's no.
How much more binding
money
you get
involved? Is that
What is it?
You'll have a due structure set up to run the authority.
It's not
You'll have
binding us,
that
but we can't get out of it?
every year, however you do it.
Okay.
Now, there's a way to protect ourselves from that. See, the problem we have with the current project to the west is that the authority started getting involved in the projects, and we couldn't control the voting. Not control the voting, but we couldn't stop it. And so our dues kept going up and up, and we had no way out.
Then we're voted
So
out.
if we look at
So maybe there's a way to control it, talk to them, and maybe try to negotiate that.
Okay.
Like,
Remember, you can't get out until everyone lets you out.
and so we can cap the dues.
So
or
you
just-
may invite to the dance, but you may not be able to leave.
And you might not be able to pay the piper. You might not be able to pay the piper all he wants to get.
Well, like I said,
But I mean, it's something to think about. I'm not.
Who all's going to be at the dance?
Just,
Franklin County, Roanoke,
just,
They tell you right
just
here.
Chris.
Montgomery County, Roanoke City, and the town of Benton.
Let's see, yeah, they tell you
Again,
everybody.
you know, speaking as a historian, this might be ironic for me to say, but I mean, I think we have to be very careful of letting history pollute our kind of future interactions. Is that, you know, this isn't the same thing as the other thing. And I think just rejecting it out of hand would be a mistake. Now, I think it's perfectly fine for us to say to Craig, and I would suggest that we are very skeptical about this because of this very loose framework, and we would want some more specifics. What are you thinking? What are your due structures? You know, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? And things like that. But to just reject it out of hand, I think would be, you know, especially because we got burned in some other issues where boards made poor decisions or we got into things that we really shouldn't have. Again, and especially because this positions us in a direction that I think this county really needs to move, which is to the northeast. Is to start looking towards the northeast.
Who wrote
and to partner up there.
Who wrote this?
This was developed by Roanoke County.
I would say.
I
Roanoke
think we
County.
should get it out there so people that are watching know exactly what we're talking about. Okay, so Roanoke County wrote it, and we've got the places that you named that would be the involved entities. But we don't know what the due structure is, and basically they're just asking us to approve this, and then from there, depending on who approved all this, then they would all get together and decide all this stuff. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. This is just the framework for moving an authority forward.
This is just a draft. I mean,
But-
it's not.
It really just regurgitates the statute, basically.
Right.
What's written.
Well, but if you read those things
There's nothing
about
in there.
withdrawal and all that stuff, if you sign this, then aren't you basically agreeing to
But we're
what's
not-
in here?
They're not asking us to sign it. They're asking us to discuss it, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think
Yeah.
nobody's going to
correct.
sign this thing after
I hope
today.
not. I hope not.
This is not how you conduct a negotiation. It's like, oh, that sounds good. You know,
No, but I'm
there's-
saying if you agreed to it.
if you were to agree to it, right? Yeah. But
If you were to agree to it, and probably sign it's the wrong thing, but if you're agreeing to what
Join.
they've set out,
Yeah, they want everyone to join it, so you'd be agreeing to join it
right,
to those terms.
right.
And those terms are what's in the statute, but my point is, and I think Matt probably said it more elegantly than me, is that we need to get more detail of what exactly this
Yeah,
means.
I agree.
And I'm a history major too, or not as quite as high as Matt, but
Right.
you got to learn from your mistakes, and that's what history teaches us. Not saying those are all mistakes to the west, but we need to learn from that.
Well,
You
the
guys
signing
have to
it
do
is
that.
wrong on my part, but I'm saying if you agree with it, or you agree to build out part of it, then that's it.
I'm not a history major, but the way I read this is that Roanoke City, the town of Benton, city of Salem, and Roanoke County would have the control. Well, look at this. You know, that's the control there.
That is why in several places it talks about things have to be agreed to by the unanimous vote of the
But those four groups there would be unanimous when it, and I'm sure they could bring Botetourt in, you know.
Probably sleep in the same bed.
I think I've heard enough, and that's the reason I wanted to introduce it tonight. I know that in talking to the Roanoke County manager or administrator, his board is expecting a timeline for these other folks to move. I know it's been discussed in Franklin County. I know it's been discussed in Botetourt County. I know it's been discussed in Roanoke City. I do not know the specific questions that were asked. I will be glad to follow up on that, and I'll also be glad to share the concerns that I've heard this evening back with the Roanoke County Administrator and see if there's any more detail that can be provided that would help move this thing forward.
personally, I would like to convey, or I would ask the administrator to convey that the board is looking forward to working closely with the Roanoke Valley, but this particular framework, there's skepticism about how effective this would be and if it would be in the best interest of Montgomery County to work forward with that. So,
Based on, and some of them participated in
Oh, yeah.
the to the west.
Commerce Park.
To the west. So they.
Should know full well.
Yeah, so
Oh,
they, to the west.
Well, we've worked on something like this back in 2000 with the New Century Council. You recall that? You know, and it didn't get anywhere. And I think they tried to revolve it in about 2004. They had another.
They've always, they want Montgomery County because it's closer to Virginia Tech.
Because it has
And
Virginia Tech.
We thought you take Virginia Tech out of the equation and they would throw rocks at you as far as you could run.
I don't know, but they want us because we have a lot of
I mean, that's just how it is.
money.
They think we have a lot
Yes,
of money.
they think
We don't
we
have a lot of money. They
should
think we have a
Virginia
lot of
Tech
money.
be involved in this venture in some way?
Well, they are behind the scenes probably.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, I mean, that might be another voting member that might be sympathetic to us as well if this were.
Does the statute allow them to be?
They're in a legal jurisdiction.
I don't think.
No,
I
they
don't,
can't, they can't be a part
don't
of
think
it.
they qualify under the statute for creating this.
Yeah.
No, I think it's just locality.
Oh,
That's my husband calling. And I am a history major, and I do worry about the things that have gone before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, when is it that our meeting runs out? Is it 11 or 11:30?
11:30.
I think it's 11:30.
Okay, so we're okay.
11:30. All
We
right.
have to move to.
Is there any more on this topic?
I think I heard enough to take back to the next
Move
meeting.
to go out of work session?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Creedy?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gaylor?
Aye.
Chair Palotis?
Aye.
7 ayes.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Now we have nothing to bring back for any kind of voting or anything on any of the consent agenda items. It's all done by consensus, not
Yes, sir.
consent, work session. All right. County Attorney's report.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
That was quick. County Administrator's report. Boy, that's a long list.
I'll be as quick as I can. Couple of pieces of good news. First, I want to announce that the New River Valley Water Authority, which we are now a member of, has hired a new executive director. As you're aware, Jerry Higgins is retiring. We have hired Caleb Taylor, who is currently the Director of Water and Sewer Utilities for the City of Salem. Caleb will start in his new role with the authority next Monday, and Jerry will be working until the end of October. I think if you haven't, you will be invited to the Water Authority dinner on September 19th, and that's going to be an opportunity
We
to,
already have been.
that'll be an opportunity to wish Jerry farewell, and Mr. Taylor will be there at that meeting. So very, very pleased with that. Also, today we finalized the 2 community meetings that we have for October. We've been working with the schools, but for some reason it's been a crazy week at schools. The meeting for District B, our community meeting, will be held on Thursday, October 10th at 7 p.m. at Christiansburg High School in the library. And we'll get all this out to you. But Thursday, October 10th at Christiansburg High School. And then on Monday, October 21st at 7 p.m., District G will be held in the Gilbert Linkus Cafegimatorium facility. Cafetorium, whatever we call that thing. So we've got those set up for the 10th and the 21st. We also received, Vicki and Brenda have been talking at the schools about our next possible joint meeting for the county and the school board. You guys had previously identified 2 other dates in October, Thursday, October 24th, or Tuesday, October 29th, as additional dates that you were available. We'll try to send that out tomorrow just to reconfirm, but if you can check to make sure the 24th or the 29th are still available as possible meeting dates, we will get that out to the schools and try to get that set up.
Craig,
Ma'am?
the 10th
Yes.
for people who are running with opposition, that is the night of the home builders meeting, and they've invited all the candidates to be there.
We want
The
to.
October 10th.
It's not that, well, I want to go on, but I cannot imagine
It's the League of
running
Women Voters Forum for
into
Blacksburg.
October the 21st and not having several places I need to go for campaigning and this type of thing.
Does the board want us to look at trying to
I think anytime in October we're going to run into problems with campaign season. So, I mean, I don't want to. I'm not running this year, so I don't want to speak for the others. But
Well, I'm not either, but
School board has to run.
what?
School board has to run too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just think that
One of the meetings is my district. If I would prefer to put this off until it looks, I understand that the candidates, I was doing the door-to-door until nightfall and going to all, so for me, and I know we didn't have a meeting in my district, I'm okay with either putting it off and maybe looking at doing it in January if we don't do it, with the Christmas season. I'm fine with that, just simply because it doesn't, I hadn't thought about the election year and League of Women Voters and the builders.
And when we floated the dates, in all honesty, staff wasn't thinking about election season either, so.
What about after the election, before December, like in November?
sometime in November.
There would be that narrow window between
The election and
We got
Thanksgiving.
Vaco in November and.
And if we could try to do it then, I would be fine with that.
So is the 21st, Gary, you said you had a problem with the 21st?
Yeah, and when it gets
Well,
up
we're
that
gonna-
far, I mean, that don't give you but 10,
2 weeks
12
away.
days or whatever.
Yeah.
And in November, we do have our VACO meeting over one of the weekends, which would be 9, 10, 11, and 12. So it'd have to be after the 12th. And we have a Board of Supervisors on the 13th, so it'd have to be after the 13th.
13?
And I don't not have it because of me, because I just have to do what I have to do.
Sure.
And I'm the same way, I got a tough race.
Well, if there's the potential for 3 of the board members not to be there, do you want us?
I think we should. What do you think, Chris?
I like I said, if we can try to fit it in November, if we can fit one and it's Matt, that's fine, and then we look at meeting my district in January or February like we did in the other districts, I'm okay with that. I'm not jumping up and down, and at the same time, if I was running for election, I think it's important for you guys to be out and meeting people and knocking on the doors and doing those things, and so I just don't have a problem with putting it off.
What if we did one in November and then one in January?
We could.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Let us,
Maybe like the 18th, that's a November 18th, that's a Monday and that we don't have a meeting.
okay.
That'd be a good time to do it during budget session too.
Well,
Yeah.
and in all likelihood, we'll do a couple of sessions on budget like we did last year too. So let's do that. We'll defer the 2 October meetings. We'll take a look at the November 18th as a possible date, and then we'll look at a January possible date.
And what do we do about the school board?
Right.
Well,
November 9th.
Yeah, Vaco's after.
Well, the 2 dates, like I said, that were suggested for school board were October 24th and October 29th. But again, if that's a concern, then I think we just let the school board know that we can't meet till after the election.
Yeah, because the 24th is a time when many of us have meetings on that particular Thursday evening.
Thursday.
Okay. Well, we'll kick that can down the road and
we'll be done
address
soon.
it.
Yeah,
One
sure.
last thing I just wanted to mention is several of you have asked me over the last couple of months what happened to the dedication plaque that was outside the doors here. As you leave, if you leave out the front door this evening, it's downstairs in the lobby. I think that somebody told me that's where it started when the building was
That's
built.
where-
Yeah.
So it's back
That's where
down
we
there.
got it.
but it's back up. The seal is back up. I'm sorry it took that long, but we had to move some stuff downstairs in order to be able to put the plaque back downstairs. So that's addressed, and I'm done.
All right. Supervisor Gabriel.
Okay, two very quick things. First of all, I just want to call your attention to an email that I think you all received from the Blacksburg Children's Museum inviting you to their fundraiser. And then I personally will be out of town, so I can't attend, but I hope some of you might be able to, or maybe even forward it to constituents and let you know. Although it is called the Blacksburg Children's Museum, of course it will be open to everybody in the county, and they've secured some space in the First and Main Shopping Center in downtown Blacksburg, so it's going to be a very nice facility when it opens. Full disclosure, my wife is helping out with the Children's Museum. She's not on the board or anything like that, and so I won't, if anything ever came to this board, if they asked for money, I would obviously recuse myself and not participate in that discussion. The second thing is, very briefly, is that I had a question about if the board, about outside groups addressing the board during delegations, if we had a formal policy about how those groups can come to the board. And the only reason I asked that is not only do we have a number of them here today, but the school board's been discussing setting up a formal policy as well. And so it was just on my mind. And if we don't have a policy, perhaps we ought to think about just a way to formalize that procedure when a community group comes to us and wants to address us, how they can go about doing that.
Just briefly on that, and if y'all know something I don't, or Vicky or Ruth, my understanding's been if a group asks to come speak on a particular topic, we try to work it into an agenda that doesn't look too busy. What happened on this one is we also had several other groups that were suggested by a couple of board members to come and speak, and it loaded up pretty quick.
No, it's not a criticism or anything like that. And I've certainly suggested community groups that I wanted added to the agenda, but I thought perhaps, again, because it was on my mind, because the school board was discussing it when I went to their meeting, maybe it might be time to have kind of a formal policy so that if an outside group wants to come address, then they can find something on our website or something, and they know how to go about that or who to contact or something like that. So maybe staff could just bring back a suggestion. I mean, I don't think it would take a whole lot of work or anything like that, but just maybe to have something formally in place, so we don't get accused of playing favorites or anything like that. So, and that's all I have.
Okay. Supervisor Creed. Supervisor Perkins.
I wanted to ask, are we doing anything about the NAACP dinner as far as purchasing a table or anything like that?
I know Vicky sent out a note to everybody asking who was interested in attending, but I don't know beyond that.
I probably will not attend.
I'm going to be there, but I may be putting it in my office's name, and so I didn't. And then I was going to have other guests, so I didn't feel right about not being at the Board of Supervisors table if I'm at a.
Okay.
And so.
I think it's just whatever.
I put in that I wanted to go, but I might be a little late. I think.
Yeah.
Did you get that from me?
I'll be out of town, so I won't be able to attend.
And that's on the 28th?
Right, because Harding Avenue has their birthday.
Right.
So I have to go to that first.
I was in the first grade class.
So I guess that says no, really. We've got. You're not going to be there, Jim?
I'm not going to be there.
Oh, how do I need this? Excuse me.
We'll move on to the next
Well,
person.
that doesn't mean that you can't.
You get one chance.
Individual
Supervisor
visits
Brown.
for the board. Yeah. That's
No,
what I was-
absolutely. I'm well. No report.
Supervisor Biggs.
Okay, I just wanted to let you guys know that we'll be going to the VACO annual conference, that I do want to run again for Region 10. My time is up, so I need to run again, and so I'm letting the people in our region know, and hopefully you can come vote for me if you're going to go to the conference. And the other thing is, I really want to thank you all for your consideration of the animal shelter. This is one, sort of one area that it's hard for me to be really factual and objective about at times because my passion overrides that. But I think that we've had enough presented to us that we know what we need to do, and I think we're proceeding on the right track. And I wanted to just thank you individually, each person, because this means a lot to me, and it means a lot to our citizens, and it means a lot to our volunteers and our animals. So thank you for your support.
Supervisor Tuck.
Two things. One, I'd asked Craig about this, and I don't think that we've been able to find pictures of the old board of supervisors. But one of the things I would like to do, as someone who has been on this board only a couple of years, I think about the service that the other previous board members have done to our community. I would like to approach the families of the previous supervisors, ask them to provide us a standard, 8 by 10 or something like that, and then the county paid to frame them and put them up with just a small plaque saying their years of service. I don't think it would cost a lot, and it would give us something on the walls. Wouldn't even have to go in here, but on some of the walls outside, just to recognize the service. And start off with John and Doug Mars and John Buffo, and kind of start working our way back. So I guess I would make that as a formal motion to try to address that. And
I want to second that, because that's something that Doug Mars actually brought up at one time, that we need to have a history, a history. And I think the reason it didn't start out was because they put art. Art was really beautiful artwork in this building. It was really, really beautiful. And then I don't know what really happened to that, but now we don't have anything. I think it'd be a great idea.
I've talked about that myself. So.
I'd just be interested in how much this would cost.
Okay, we have consensus on that?
I'd like to do this, say this before, that let staff work on it at their leisure, not to go wide open,
I agree.
And so if it takes them 6 months or a year to contact these people, that it doesn't, cause a backlog in some other projects.
I agree.
And what I'd like to suggest too, because we did this in another jurisdiction, is if we can get the pictures standardized so they're all like 8 by 10, then you can get a standard nice frame at Michael's or whatever, and then when you start putting them up, you've got a uniform look, and so it would be $25, $35 plus staff time per picture.
And if you don't do pictures, you can always do the little plaque things that has a person's name and their years of service.
If you can't find a picture.
I'm all for that, but I'm wondering if we couldn't let whoever area they're in, whether it's A, B, C, D, or whatever, someone from that group now just go and see if they can get the pictures. It might be a little easier than staff trying to run them all down if we all went out, and mine's not going to be hard.
You got one person.
Well, obviously, I've got Doug, I've got Ann Hess, and I've got Nick, and that's about as far back as I can, and then we'll have to have some staff time or someone to look at it and see about trying to pull back, but not
be a good job for an intern from Virginia
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that would be good.
A great job
Start
for
a
an
list.
I'm sure the history department at Tech would love to send sick an undergraduate on this.
And I've got Henry Jablonski, and I don't know who it was before that.
That's the reason why you need staff.
Well, and I don't want Ruth to miss the beer pet project. I was just thinking of an intern. That would be great. And the other thing is, I just wanted to read for the record that what we got about why we weren't complying, and why we weren't going to do the park and ride. And the 7 point, the application itself set. I mean, not the park and ride. Excuse me. The parking at the old Blacksburg Middle School site for the Virginia Tech parking. And the application shall set forth the dates which the temporary parking facilities permit is requested. The application shall provide the name and address and telephone number of a single responsible person. This person shall be responsible for the facilities in compliance with the terms of this division. The applicant shall submit, number 3, a map indicating the typical routes that visitors will take to reach the parking facility, including the number and location of residential areas affected by the traffic. 4, the applicant shall submit a plan indicating the typical routes and means in which visitors will take to reach the special event from the temporary parking facility. 5, the applicant shall submit a trash management plan indicating the number, size, and location of trash cans and temporary parking facility, and including a schedule for trash collection. 6, the applicant shall submit a bathroom plan indicating the number and locations of bathrooms that will be made available to persons using the temporary parking facility. 7, the applicant shall submit a signage plan demonstrating the number and size of location of signs that will be used to direct visitors to the facility. Complying with that, and I know that there are folks that are listening, that's why we're not doing it. But there was a general consensus that we were going to use this money, either turn it over to the Educational Foundation or to the schools, and not tell them how to spend it, but just give it to them. And this is why we're not doing it, because it would cost more than what we would raise to comply with that.
But if you're a homeowner and you want to park
Did you want to
cars in your
finish?
yard, you don't have to do that.
Are we finished?
Actually, you're supposed to.
Everybody
They
with
don't-
me?
they don't do it
Everybody? Okay. You received a copy of a letter from Wayne Strickland, did you all? Did you put that in everybody's?
What was it about?
I know
It was about what we talked about, the letter from Mr. McFarland.
Oh, yes, I sent that out in an email.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am. Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
He had asked me for a copy of Mr. McFarland's letter to us. I cannot find my copy, but I also wanted to ask
It's laying on the
if
top of my
that's
desk.
something we want you to
I'll be
do.
glad. I'll be glad to do
Or
it.
I'll be happy to send it to him.
It's laying on top of my desk. I'll be glad
Okay,
to send
I
it to
should
him.
have asked you sooner, but I had that surgery on my eye this couple weeks. But he was very concerned that we understand that the MPO really had nothing to do with it, and that he was very saddened that the letter got to the people and indicated, that wanted everybody to join in. And so he was very concerned about it. And that's why he wrote the letter to us. And I really wish I had been able to bring this up before. Okay? But anyway, since I'm the MPO person, I wanted you all to be aware of that. And I do want to apologize for my husband, but I can't. My number is the only number he knows. And so he does. And I just forgot to put it on vibrate. So sorry about that. And I apologize for it.
Okay, now, because of my report, we might have to go into extended time.
You got 8 minutes.
Not enough.
No, you better not be that long.
Hey, you see this?
Oh, go ahead, I'm waiting.
We'll be short a chair, too.
Respect,
I
right?
have a couple of things. Last Thursday, Craig and I attended the breakfast at the Chamber,
Eggs and issues, yes.
and Lisa, our tourism director, made a presentation, and it was tremendous, very well received, and the Chamber people really appreciate her being there. So,
No taxes on that meal.
pardon?
Yes.
The other thing is, we have a little bit of feeling of pride over at Auburn these last couple of football games. We hadn't won a football game since 2009, and right now we're 2-0. So,
Yay.
and other than that, that's all I have.
It's not gonna last long.
Well, you're not,
Meeting will be adjourned.
you're not talking about what